The story begins with Lyth and his childhood friend Sarah pushing themselves through brutal training, dreaming of becoming holy knights one day. Sarah refuses to slow down, but Lyth cannot shake one frightening question: can effort really overcome the class a person is born with? Sarah insists that every drop of sweat will pay off. Lyth tries to believe her, yet the world around them says otherwise. People do not become strong simply because they work harder. Their future will be decided by something neither of them can control. For Lyth, Sarah is more than a training partner. She is his only real friend, a dependable childhood companion who has always felt like an older sister. Together, they have spent years chasing the same impossible-looking dream. Their motivation is not just glory. Lyth has seen how brutally the poorest citizens struggle just to survive, and that reality fuels his desire to become someone capable of protecting others, instead of merely watching them suffer. In this world, everything changes at 18. The gods bestow a class: blade master, mage, cleric, farmer, merchant, and many others. And that single title often determines what path a person can realistically follow for the rest of their life. That system is merciless. A farmer or merchant cannot simply decide to become a combat adventurer, while warriors and mages possess advantages ordinary effort cannot easily bridge. Lyth knows the truth, and that is exactly why Class Division Day terrifies him. Sarah refuses to let him drown in doubt. She is convinced Lyth will receive a powerful class, then immediately drags him back into training. Her confidence is infectious. But deep down, Lyth's anxiety only grows stronger. Years pass, and the day they once talked about finally arrives. Class Division Day is here, and Lyth about to learn whether all those years of training meant anything at all. The entire town feels like a festival, as young people gather for the ceremony. Everyone knows the Duke's son will be tested today, so eyes are on the Wellesley families. And the expectations surrounding Lyth are enormous. Inside the crowded temple, nervous candidates wait for their turn. Then Duke Wellesley arrives, instantly drawing the attention of the room. As ruler of the territory and a famed holy knight, his presence makes the pressure on his sons even heavier. Lyth recognizes the man everyone is staring at. His father, Duke Wellesley. To the public, Ride is an admired holy knight. To Lyth, however, he is also the man whose approval has always felt painfully distant. Lyth's younger half-brother stands with their father as well. Though they different mothers, the boy is still a Wellesley. And if he receives a prestigious class, Lyth knows the balance inside the family could change overnight. The ritual itself is simple. Place a hand on the sacred crystal, and a symbol revealing the person's class will appear. One touch is all it takes to decide the direction of an entire life. The crystal responds, revealing the emblem of a holy knight. One of the rarest and most prestigious combat classes has appeared, immediately sending excitement through the temple. A holy knight class is extraordinarily rare, yet the Wellesley family produces one. Duke Ride proudly acknowledges his son, while Lyth watches the celebration and feels the weight of his own turn closing in. Lyth can already see how his father views power, as something to be used for the family's position. Then Sarah's name is called, pulling Lyth's attention away from the Wellesleys and back to the person he trusts most. The crystal answers Sarah as well. Against incredible odds, she too receives the Holy Knight path. The girl who trained beside Lyth for years has just reached the future they promised each other. Now there is no one left to hide behind. Sarah has succeeded, the Wellesley family has produced another powerful heir, and Lyth is finally called forward. Lyth places his hand on the crystal. For one long, suffocating moment, everyone waits for the divine symbol that is supposed to define him. The temple is already buzzing over the appearance of multiple rare holy knights. Naturally, people expect the Duke's other son to produce something equally extraordinary. Lyth can feel those expectations pressing down on him from every direction. He grips the crystal with one thought burning in his mind. He will become a holy knight, too. After everything he sacrificed, he refuses to believe the gods could choose any other path for him. More than status, Lyth wants strength he can call his own. He wants the power to protect people, seize his future with his own hands, and prove that his years of training were not meaningless. His wish is painfully simple. He wants to become stronger. But the crystal remains silent, and the longer that silence lasts, the more horrifying the answer becomes. The priests, nobles, and candidates stare at the crystal in disbelief. No emblem appears. Instead of receiving a glorious class, Leith becomes the one result nobody in the temple knows how to explain. Leith keeps his hand on the crystal, hoping anything will appear. But the surface stays blank. The divine system that gives everyone a place in the world has given him nothing. Confusion erupts immediately. Some insist the crystal must be malfunctioning, while Leith can barely process what is happening. This is not merely a weak class. He has received no class at all. The verdict is undeniable. At 18, when every person is normally blessed by the gods, Leith Wellesley receives nothing. In a world ruled by classes, the Duke's son has become jobless. The humiliation follows him all the way back to the Wellesley estate. Before Leith can even understand what his future looks like, a servant informs him that Duke Ride has summoned him. Leith walks toward the meeting, knowing something has changed. The ceremony did not merely embarrass the family. It has threatened the value his father once believed Leith might possess. Ride wastes no time. From this day forward, Leith is no longer recognized as a member of the Wellesley household, and Kite will be treated as the eldest son. Leith is given only 1 hour to leave. There is no argument and no second chance. The doors of the home where Leith grew up are effectively shut in his face. A single blank crystal has erased his place in the family. Back in town, the atmosphere could not be more different. Sarah is celebrated as a local hero for becoming a holy knight, while the townspeople drink in her honor. Leith quietly watches the future they once shared, split into 2 completely different paths. The gossip makes the contrast even crueler. People praise the appearance of 2 holy knights connected to the Duke, then laugh over the fact that another son received the useless jobless status. Leith has become the punchline of his own hometown. As the celebration continues, the reality finally sinks in. The Wellesley family had always placed its hopes elsewhere, and Leith begins wondering whether his father ever truly saw him as a son, or only as a potential asset. Self-pity will not feed him. With no family and no class, Leith's first problem is brutally practical. He needs work. But what job is available to someone whom the world officially considers capable of nothing? Sarah clearly does not want him disappearing from her life, yet Leith refuses to become a burden. While emotions run high, he decides he must find a way to survive on his own before worrying about anything else. Being jobless means Leith has no recognized skills either. With money running out, the only work he can find is hauling cargo, a far cry from the swordsmanship he spent his entire childhood developing. The workers even offer him simple, commoner food, worried it might not suit someone raised in a duke's household. Leith accepts without complaint. Pride is a luxury he can no longer afford. Still, the humiliation cuts deep. Instead of carrying a sword as a knight, Leith now carries crates for a living. For someone who trained his whole life to fight, the contrast is almost unbearable. The job takes the caravan through a dangerous forest, forcing everyone to proceed cautiously. Leith may be classless, but years of training have made him far more alert than the people around him realize. Then the danger reveals itself. Bandits have been waiting in the forest, and the caravan has walked straight into their ambush. The scene turns grim immediately. Armed men stand over fallen escorts and abandoned weapons, making one thing clear. These are not petty thieves. They have already killed once, and they have no reason to leave witnesses alive. The bandits casually confirm that the escorts are dead, then turn their attention to the remaining workers. To them, the caravan is already finished. They simply have not realized that one of the cargo boys spent years training with a sword. Leith steps forward. He may not possess a combat class, but he has practiced swordsmanship for years. Being jobless does not mean his body forgot every swing, every stance, and every lesson he drilled into himself. He knows the odds are terrible. Against opponents empowered by real combat skills, raw practice should not be enough. But if Leith refuses to fight now, everyone behind him dies, so fear is no longer an excuse. The bandits mock the classless boy standing in their way. To them, Leith is nothing more than an arrogant amateur holding a weapon he has no right to use. That confidence is about to become their first mistake. Leith remembers the lesson everyone learns as a child. Classes decide aptitude. Blademasters fight, merchants trade, farmers grow crops. The system is so absolute that challenging someone outside your assigned role is practically considered madness, and the man in front of him appears to be exactly the kind of opponent Leith should never challenge, a true combatant whose class gives him natural mastery over the blade. the bandit activates physique boost, pouring supernatural strength into his body. Leith immediately feels the difference between trained muscles and a genuine combat skill. The pressure is so great that Leith's sword begins to chip. Every clash proves the same ugly truth. Effort alone cannot match the power the gods handed his opponent. The bandit laughs at him for daring to fight without even being a blade master. Leith is strong for a jobless nobody, perhaps, but in the enemy's eyes, that only makes his defeat more pathetic. For the first time since leaving home, Leith truly wonders whether this is where his life ends. Disowned, classless, and killed on a roadside job, the future he once dreamed about feels impossibly far away. The bandit leader has had enough and orders Leith killed. There is no longer any room to retreat. One mistake now means death. Yet something strange happens. Leith begins reading attacks so cleanly that he can dodge almost on instinct, even claiming he could avoid a strike with his eyes closed. The bandits expected an easy victim, but the balance is shifting. Leith is frustrated rather than relieved. Why was he so helpless moments ago? Why does his body suddenly feel different? The answer arrives from a place he never expected. A mysterious woman's voice echoes inside his head. He has obtained physique boost. Then another notification follows, granting him a blade-related skill as well. Leith has no class, yet somehow he is acquiring other people's abilities. The next strike proves the voice was real. Leith blocks an attack that should have overwhelmed him, stunning the bandit who had been mocking him only seconds earlier. The fight explodes into close-range combat. Leith uses his newly acquired strength to survive the bandit's assault, slipping through attacks and turning what should have been an execution into a real battle. Then Leith lands a clean hit. The bandit who once dominated him is finally forced backward, and the impossible idea becomes real. The jobless boy is winning. Leith presses the advantage and tears through the remaining resistance. Without a recognized class of his own, he is now fighting with the very abilities that were supposed to separate him from true warriors. When the last exchange ends, Leith can barely catch his breath. He survived. But the bigger shock is not that he defeated the bandits. It is that his body now remembers powers he never possessed before. The rescued travelers finally break down in relief. What began as a routine cargo job nearly became a massacre, and the person who saved them was the supposedly useless classless worker traveling beside them. They thank Leith for saving their lives and naturally assume he must secretly possess an offensive class. Leith can only deny it, because even he does not understand what just happened. Thinking back carefully, Leith notices a pattern. Each time he struck or clashed with the bandit, he felt something transfer, and a goddess-like voice announced the new skill. This cannot be a coincidence. The grateful merchant offers money, connections, anything Leith wants in return for saving them. Instead of asking for luxury, Leith chooses something far more valuable: help finding an answer to the mystery of his power. Leith explains that there is someone he needs to meet and asks for assistance reaching him. By the next day, the jobless boy is no longer searching for employment. He is searching for the truth about himself. That request brings Leith before an important church authority, where he asks for something almost unheard of: a reassessment of the class crystal. If the first result was a mistake, this is his chance to prove it. Normally such a request would be dismissed immediately. But Leith carries a letter from one of the Archbishop's old friends. That connection is enough to earn him a hearing. The Archbishop recognizes the sender as a companion from decades ago and agrees to help. Leith's life may have fallen apart, but the people he saved have opened a door even the Wellesley name could not. Leith now stands before Archbishop Augustinus, one of the kingdom's most influential religious figures. If anyone can explain a broken class result, it should be him. Augustinus confirms that Leith wants the Jobless verdict reassessed. He warns that this is highly irregular, but out of respect for his old friend, he agrees to begin the examination. The result is crushingly familiar. The crystal remains blank. Augustinus makes it clear that these devices are not known to give false verdicts. Leith truly has no class. But then the Archbishop examines Leith's abilities and freezes. Physique boost and the blade skill are unmistakably combat-oriented powers, abilities Leith should never possess if the divine system is functioning normally. The contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Farmers and merchants cannot simply learn these combat skills, yet Leith, who has no class at all, possesses them both. Augustinus admits he has never seen anything like it. An 18-year-old with no class is already extraordinary. A classless person using a blade master's abilities should be impossible. So what exactly is Lythe? Rather than guess, the Archbishop leads Lythe deep into the church archives. If the present cannot explain him, perhaps history can. Among countless records, Augustinus remembers an old account of another person who lived without a class. According to the surviving text, that individual possessed a hidden ability unlike any normal skill. The record describes the power to imitate or acquire the skills of others. Suddenly, Lythe's experience with the bandits makes terrifying sense. Jobless may not mean powerless at all. Lythe explains that he only gained the combat skills after physically clashing with the bandit. That detail strengthens the theory. His mysterious ability may require direct contact during battle. Augustinus cannot explain every condition, but the core conclusion is clear. Lythe's blank class is not necessarily a defect. It may be the reason he can take abilities no ordinary class could ever possess. Finding a historical precedent is already a breakthrough. Lythe finally knows he is not imagining things, even if the old records still leave most of the power's rules unanswered. Instead of fearing the mystery, Lythe becomes determined to understand it. If this power really allows him to acquire skills, then being jobless might be the beginning of his path, not the end. And Lythe knows exactly what he wants to do with that chance. Become a knight. The dream his father discarded has not disappeared with his class. With help from his new connections, Lythe successfully registers for the knight examination. For the first time since being expelled from home, he has a concrete road forward. The exam will be held the day after tomorrow. Lythe receives his application instructions and realizes he has almost no time to prepare for a test designed for people with genuine combat classes. He arrives in the imperial capital, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the city. Everywhere he looks, powerful fighters and aspiring knights move through the streets. Rather than be intimidated, Lythe decides to train until the exam begins. If his copied skills are real, he intends to learn exactly how far they can take him. Then a familiar voice reaches him. After searching frantically, Sarah has finally found Lythe in the capital. Lythe barely has time to react before Sarah rushes straight toward him. The reunion is far more emotional than he expected, proving just how deeply his sudden disappearance affected her. Sarah's relief quickly turns into anger and worry. Lythe vanished without explaining anything, and from her perspective, her closest friend simply disappeared after the worst day of his life. She admits she has been terrified for him. Whatever title Sarah received from the gods, the person she was most worried about was still the classless boy who left home alone. Sarah refuses to accept Lythe, brushing the situation aside. She feared he might do something reckless, or worse, after losing his family and future in a single day. Lythe apologizes and finally explains everything. He needed money, accepted cargo work, and was ambushed by bandits. The story sounds disastrous enough before he even reaches the strangest part. He tells Sarah that fighting those bandits somehow allowed him to obtain their skills. Sarah is stunned. A jobless person should have no skills at all, yet Lythe is doing something no recognized class can explain. Then Lythe reveals his next move. He is taking the knight exam. Sarah's expression immediately changes from concern to excitement, because if his new abilities are real, his old dream may still be alive. Naturally, Sarah demands proof. She wants to see the skills Lythe gained with her own eyes, before letting him walk into one of the kingdom's hardest examinations. Lythe chooses a massive boulder as his target. He is not completely sure he can cut through it, but there is only one way to find out whether the power he copied truly belongs to him now. The moment he activates Physique Boost, Sarah recognizes it instantly. That is a genuine combat skill, not a trick. And Lythe is using it as naturally as the bandit who originally possessed it. Lythe follows with the blade enhancement and unleashes his strike. The rock gives way under the combined force, proving his copied abilities are not weakened imitations. Sarah is convinced. Physique Boost and Blade Boost are both powerful enough to make a huge difference in the exam. For the first time, Lythe has someone beside him who truly believes the jobless candidate can pass. Before leaving, Sarah realizes Lythe still has not seen the signature ability of a holy knight. If his mysterious power truly works through contact, she may be able to give him an even stronger weapon for the exam. Sarah activates a genuine holy knight technique, and Lythe immediately understands why the class is so revered. This is power on a completely different level from the bandit skills he copied earlier. Remembering that Lyth gained abilities through direct combat, Sarah tells him to hold out his hand. She has decided to test the limits of his strange, jobless power herself. The mysterious voice returns. Lyth obtains a Celestial Class Holy Knight ability, confirming that his power is not limited to enemies or bandits. He can acquire skills from allies as well. Sarah nervously asks whether it worked. Lyth confirms the new ability is there, though Sarah notes her own power feels slightly reduced for the moment. Even so, she hopes the copied skill will help him survive the exam. Sarah sends Lyth off with complete confidence, promising she will be waiting for him at the nightly order. He is no longer entering the exam with 2 stolen bandit skills. He now carries a Holy Knight's power too. Exam day arrives in the imperial capital, and the recruitment grounds are packed with applicants. The competition is fierce, because becoming a knight is one of the highest honors a fighter can earn. Training Officer Roger surveys the candidates and is unimpressed. None of them immediately look exceptional, but his assistant reminds him not to judge too quickly. One applicant in particular is about to make that warning matter. Knighthood is not an ordinary profession. Only a small fraction of people with combat-oriented classes can qualify, and passing the exam grants status, authority, and a path into the kingdom's elite. The applicants gather in tense silence as the examination officially prepares to begin. Every fighter here has a combat class, except one. Roger introduces himself as the examiner and makes the rules brutally clear. Reasons, family background, and political ambition mean nothing here. Only those who can actually perform will pass. Passing grants the 9th knight rank, already equivalent to minor nobility, and outstanding service can raise a knight even higher. For Lyth, this is more than a job. It is a route back into a world that declared him worthless. With the introductions finished, Roger begins the examination. Lyth finally steps onto the path he was told a jobless man could never walk. When the staff checks Lyth's application, they assume someone forgot to record his class. Then they notice the blank field is intentional. Lyth calmly confirms the form is correct. He received an oracle like everyone else, but no class was bestowed on him. The officials immediately question how someone like that plans to fight. The room goes quiet. Without a class, Lyth should not possess the offensive skills needed for knighthood. His very presence at the exam seems absurd to everyone watching. The examiners warn him that even Blademasters and mages struggle here. A classless applicant should be risking serious injury just by participating. Lyth, however, has already survived far worse. Lyth simply answers that he will be fine. He did not come all this way to retreat because strangers repeated the same limitations he has heard his entire life. Roger is amused rather than offended. The impossible applicant has caught his interest, so he overrides the objections and allows Lyth to participate. Now the jobless candidate will have to justify that decision. The other applicants immediately begin whispering, and one fighter named Logan Bentley openly mocks him. To Logan, allowing a classless weakling into the exam is an insult to everyone who belongs there. Logan tells Lyth to stay in his lane. In his eyes, a jobless man has no business dreaming of knighthood, and he is eager to prove it physically. Lyth barely reacts to the provocation. Logan tries to intimidate him, but Lyth dismisses the taunts as information not worth remembering. That indifference only irritates Logan more. The word jobless spreads through the crowd like a joke. Yet while everyone is busy judging the label, no one has seen what Lyth can actually do. Roger suddenly points out something important. The exam has already begun. The applicants are not merely waiting for a formal signal. The way they respond under pressure is already being observed. Logan lunges at Lyth, but the supposed weakling reacts instantly, catching and redirecting the attack before it can land. The first real shock of the examination comes before the official match even starts. Roger orders everyone back into position, while Logan is forced to swallow his embarrassment. Lyth has already shown more composure than many of the classed applicants around him. Roger even calls Lyth interesting, while another candidate realizes the jobless applicant is far from ordinary. The whispers are beginning to change tone. Logan, meanwhile, is still obsessed with proving himself superior. Roger watches both men carefully, already wondering whether this rivalry might reveal something useful about Lyth's growth. A brief exchange confirms Roger's suspicion. Lyth not only withstands pressure, but manages to return meaningful damage, taking experienced observers by surprise. The examiners revise their first impression. There are promising candidates here after all, and the man without a class may be the most unpredictable of them. After the preliminary tests, the remaining applicants assemble for the main event. The easy part is over. Now they will be judged in actual combat. Roger explains the night recruitment exam. Candidates will fight realistic mock battles and be graded on their performance. It is not supposed to be a death match, but nobody here will pass by playing safe. Protective rings create a divine protection barrier around each fighter, absorbing a limited amount of damage. Break the opponent's barrier with a clean attack, and the match is over. The first round begins, and Lythe's opponent is announced. Fate, or perhaps Logan's own obsession, places the two rivals directly against each other. Logan Bentley steps forward, thrilled by the chance to crush the Jobless man publicly. He has been waiting to turn his insults into a decisive victory. Both fighters confirm their protection rings are active. With the safety measure in place, there is nothing left preventing Logan from attacking at full force. The signal is given. Logan promises Lythe a beating, while Lythe remains completely calm. The night exam has finally become a real fight. Lythe immediately recognizes Logan's class as a mage. That means distance, speed, and overwhelming magical firepower. Exactly the kind of opponent a normal swordsman would hate facing. Logan begins casting without hesitation, confident that a classless fighter will never cross the distance before being burned down. But Lythe moves far faster than expected. Logan's first attack fails to pin him down, and the mage is stunned by the speed of someone who supposedly has no combat class. The gap closes before Logan can comfortably reset. Lythe's years of physical training are already making his copied abilities more dangerous than anyone expected. Then Lythe activates Celestial Boost, the Holy Knight skill Sarah gave him. The atmosphere changes instantly. His strength, magical power, and reflex surge at once. Attacks that should have been difficult to follow suddenly look slow enough to read and counter. Logan fires a flame lance, only for Lythe to cut straight through it. Watching a swordsman slice apart magic is shocking enough. Watching a Jobless man do it is almost unbelievable. Logan refuses to accept what he is seeing. He boasts that Lythe may have a few skills, but a classless nobody can never defeat a genius mage who has mastered top-tier abilities. The arrogance only pushes Logan harder. He unleashes more power, determined to prove the world still works the way he believes it does. Yet Lythe keeps blocking. Every spell Logan expected to dominate the match becomes another attack the Jobless swordsman survives. The pace accelerates as Logan pours more magic into the arena. Lythe stays inside the barrage, waiting for the moment when the mage's confidence becomes carelessness. Logan amplifies his attack even further, convinced raw magical output will finally overwhelm Lythe's defenses. A violent strike tears across the arena, forcing Lythe into a razor-thin exchange. For a moment, it looks as if Logan's superior firepower has finally caught him. Then Logan's expression collapses. Lythe is still standing. The attack that was supposed to finish the classless challenger has failed. Lythe answers with celestial power of his own, proving Sarah's Holy Knight skill is not merely something he can activate. It is something he can fight with. The spectators struggle to understand what they are seeing. A Jobless man is using Holy Knight abilities while trading blows with advanced magic. The rules of the class system are breaking in front of them. Desperate, Logan decides to use the last and strongest part of his arsenal. If ordinary fire cannot win, he will unleash everything at once. He invokes a devastating dragon-themed spell, filling the arena with enough power to make even experienced knights take notice. The attack erupts in a massive blast. Fire and force swallow the battlefield, and for a moment Lythe disappears completely inside the explosion. Logan laughs, certain the match is over. Then a voice answers from inside the destruction. No, you haven't. Lythe is still fighting. Logan's confidence turns to panic. The impossible opponent keeps advancing through everything he throws at him. Lythe closes the final distance before Logan can recover. The mage has spent the match relying on overwhelming power. Now he has nowhere left to run. One decisive strike crashes through Logan's defense. The Jobless swordsman ends the duel in front of the stunned exam grounds. The protective barrier shatters. There is no argument left about who won. Roger announces the result. Victory goes to Lythe Wellesley. The classless applicant has defeated a trained mage in his very first official night battle. The destructive match leaves nearby civilians frightened, and the chaos reminds Lyth what being a knight is actually supposed to mean. Winning is not enough if innocent people are left in danger. Lyth immediately moves to help rather than celebrate. That instinct catches the attention of the people watching him just as much as his swordsmanship did. A child thanks Lyth and asks if he is a knight, excitedly saying he wants to become one someday too. For Lyth, those words hit harder than any insult about being jobless. Lyth tells the child that one day he can become an amazing knight as well. It is the same kind of encouragement Sarah once gave Lyth, and now he is finally able to pass it forward. The crowd erupts over the upset. A noble candidate has just been defeated in a flash by the man everyone dismissed as useless, and the exam suddenly has a new favorite story. Then the hidden reward appears. Lyth's mysterious voice announces several new abilities: Dragon Breath, Flame Lance, and Flame Lance Rain. By fighting Logan directly, he has copied the mage's arsenal too. Lyth checks on Logan rather than gloating. The protective system prevented fatal damage, but the mage has clearly been shaken far more deeply than his injuries alone can explain. Roger moves on to the next match, excited about what Lyth might become. But Logan refuses to let the defeat stand, and suddenly accuses him of cheating. Logan claims Lyth faked being jobless and must secretly be a holy knight who hid his true class to enter the exam. In his mind, that is the only explanation that makes sense. Other applicants begin whispering the same theory. A real holy knight would not even need this exam. So, perhaps someone powerful is secretly helping Lyth from the shadows. The accusation gains traction for one reason. A jobless person using a holy knight skill should be impossible. Even people who watched Lyth win cannot explain that contradiction. Roger refuses to rush the judgment. He puts the match result on hold until the strange situation can be properly investigated. Before the argument can grow any louder, an unexpected figure arrives, and the entire exam ground immediately falls silent. Princess Iris Lawrence enters in person. Nobles, knights, and examiners panic at the sudden appearance of royalty. But Iris has come for one specific reason. She confirms publicly that there was no fraud. Lyth truly has no class, yet the celestial abilities he used are undeniably authentic holy knight skills. Then Iris turns the accusation around. The person who violated the spirit of the exam was not Lyth. It was Logan Bentley. Iris reveals that Logan was not fighting alone. Hidden supporters had been manipulating the match from outside the arena. The scheme is exposed. Several people were secretly using fortifying magic to strengthen Logan during the duel. The genius who mocked Lyth had needed outside help the entire time. Iris orders an appropriate punishment for everyone involved. Logan pleads for another chance, but the princess has already seen through every trick. With the cheaters removed, Iris declares the matter settled and tells Lyth to stand. The classless candidate's victory is officially legitimate. She confirms his name, Lyth Wellesley, and studies him for a moment. Then the princess makes a decision nobody at the exam could possibly predict. Iris announces that she has made up her mind. Lyth expects praise or perhaps permission to continue the test. Instead, she changes his entire future in a single sentence. By royal authority, Iris appoints Lyth directly to her royal guard. The man who entered the day merely hoping to become a 9th-rank knight has just skipped far beyond the normal path. The sudden appointment leaves everyone speechless, including Lyth. But Iris is not finished. She immediately brings him somewhere even more intimidating. Iris presents her newly chosen guard to her father, King Richard III. Lyth has gone from an unwanted jobless son to standing before the ruler of the nation in a matter of days. Lyth can barely understand how he ended up in the throne room. The king himself is now evaluating the classless swordsman, his daughter, dragged into the royal family's inner circle. The officials object that a brand new recruit cannot simply join the royal guard. By tradition, only high-ranking knights are eligible, and Lyth has not even completed the normal process. The hierarchy is strict. Ordinary graduates begin at the 9th rank, and only extraordinary knights climb toward the 1st. A royal guard must normally be at least 7th rank. Iris calmly finds the loophole. The law says royal guards must be 7th rank or higher, but nowhere does it say a newcomer cannot be appointed directly to 7th. The bureaucracy has no answer. The decision stands. Iris tells Lyth she is counting on him, and he promises not to let her down. Then she says there is one more person he needs to meet. That person is King Richard himself. Lyth quickly notices the king's expression is far less welcoming than Iris's, especially after hearing about Lythie's recent duel and sudden promotion. Richard bluntly remarks that his daughter seems to have taken quite a liking to Lyth. The jobless knight can handle blades and magic, but this conversation is becoming far more dangerous. Then Iris casually reveals the real bombshell. She has also chosen Lyth as a prospective husband. Lyth's mind nearly stops. Royal Guard was already unbelievable. Becoming the princess's husband sounds like a joke he is not brave enough to laugh at. Richard explains that Iris appears to regard Lyth as someone special. For one brief second, Lyth is relieved that the king does not seem openly furious. That relief dies instantly when Richard releases overwhelming killing intent. Lyth suddenly wonders whether the king is about to murder him personally. The rumors surrounding Richard flood back into Lyth's mind. The king has supposedly destroyed enemy camps by himself and even killed a dragon in a single blow. This is not a father-in-law he wants angry. Worse, every ounce of that terrifying bloodlust is being aimed directly at Lyth. The message could not be clearer. Survive the king's scrutiny, or forget about getting anywhere near his daughter. Richard steps forward with the pressure of a battlefield monster, testing whether Lyth will break under his presence. Lyth realizes that standing before the king may be more frightening than the entire night exam. Then Richard suddenly laughs. Instead of attacking, he admits Lyth must possess extraordinary power to remain standing through that intimidation. It was a test, and Lyth passed. The king makes his philosophy clear. Background means nothing if someone proves true ability. Duke, commoner, or even potential son-in-law, Lyth will be judged by what he accomplishes, not by the class written beside his name. Iris immediately takes advantage of the mood, cheerfully suggesting that she and Lyth would make a great couple. Lyth tries to retreat behind formal titles, only for Iris to order him to call her simply Iris. With the terrifying audience finally over, Lythie asks where Iris is taking him next. Her answer is deliberately vague, which somehow makes him even more nervous. The two leave the throne area and head deeper into the royal compound. Lyth is about to meet the people he will actually be serving beside. Iris reveals their destination: the Royal Guards. The classless knight is about to be introduced directly to one of the most elite fighting units in the kingdom. She tells Lyth he will serve under her direct command, then adds one important warning before they enter. His new position is prestigious, but it is far from safe. Iris admits there may already be someone inside the Royal Guard who cannot be trusted. The danger is much closer than Lythie expected. More specifically, Iris believes someone among the people sworn to protect her may actually be after her life. Lythie's first royal assignment is suddenly beginning to look like an internal war. Iris gathers the guards and formally presents their newest member. Every veteran in the room turns to examine the unknown newcomer who has appeared out of nowhere. Lyth introduces himself as politely as possible. Unfortunately, humility does little to soften the suspicion surrounding an outsider who skipped the normal hierarchy. One guard, Larg, immediately brings up the Wellesley name and noble blood. Lyth shuts that down, insisting he is simply Lyth now, a commoner with no claim on the Duke's household. The veterans assume a commoner promoted this quickly must be an incredible prodigy from another knightly order. They ask which elite unit produced him. The answer is almost insulting. Lyth was appointed as a knight today. He has no long record, no famous order, and no years of service to justify his position. The room erupts. A man recruited today has somehow jumped directly to 7th rank, high enough to join the Royal Guard. To the veterans, it looks like blatant favoritism. Several guards openly question how someone without meritorious deeds could receive such a promotion. The resentment Iris warned Lyth about becomes visible immediately. Iris refuses to back down, but one skeptical knight insists the real issue is ability. If Lyth truly deserves the rank, he should be able to prove it. A quick duel is proposed. One guard eagerly accepts, saying he wants to see Lyth's strength with his own eyes rather than trust a royal command. Captain Urs intervenes, refusing to let an injured subordinate start a reckless fight. But when the challenge refuses to disappear, the captain offers a better solution. He will test Lyth himself. The atmosphere changes instantly. Urs draws his weapon and steps opposite Lyth, turning a petty challenge into a duel against one of the strongest men in the Royal Guard. Lyth draws as well. The other guards back away as the two swordsmen take their positions, and even Iris watches closely. This is no longer hazing, it is a genuine evaluation. The spectators whisper about Captain Urz's reputation. He is considered one of the Royal Guard's most powerful fighters and even a potential future Grandmaster of the Knightly Order. Yet, Iris still believes in Lyth. To keep the test fair, Urz bans offensive and defensive skills. No magical boosts, no special techniques. Only pure swordsmanship protected by basic safety barriers. Urz intends to end the duel in a single blow. Against a new recruit, he sees no reason to drag things out. Lyth does not panic. If this is supposed to be a test of fundamentals, then years of obsessive training may finally matter more than any copied skill. The first clash nearly tears the weapon from Lyth's hands. Urz's raw strength is monstrous even without a skill, immediately proving why the captain's reputation is so terrifying. But Lyth keeps watching. Instead of blindly matching force, he studies Urz's timing, weight shifts, and sword path. Surviving the first blow gives him information. Urz increases the pressure, forcing Lyth deeper into defense. Every exchange asks the same question. Does the Jobless rookie have real swordsmanship underneath all those borrowed powers? Lyth finally answers by slipping through the captain's attack and redirecting the blade. Urz expected a quick finish. Instead, the rookie has forced the duel to continue. Urz tries to overpower Lyth again, but this time the rookie absorbs the impact without collapsing. The captain can no longer dismiss him as someone relying entirely on borrowed skills. Lyth recovers his footing and forces Urz to give ground. What began as a one-sided test is quickly becoming a duel neither man can treat casually. The watching guards erupt in disbelief, as another violent exchange shakes the training ground. Even Iris looks surprised by how far Lyth can push the captain with nothing but a sword. Lyth holds his stance, refusing to let the pressure break him. Urz now understands that ending this match cleanly will require more than brute force. The duel reaches its decisive moment. Both fighters commit, and the entire Royal Guard waits to see whether the rookie can survive one final exchange with their captain. When the blades stop, the result is clear. This test has gone far beyond what anyone expected, from a man who became a knight only hours earlier. Urz lowers his weapon and admits the outcome himself. This match is his loss. The captain explains that he initially believed he could handle Lyth easily, but the rookie's counter was far stronger than expected. Lyth forced one of the Royal Guard's best fighters into a situation he had not prepared for. Urz even admits he used a skill instinctively to avoid being overwhelmed, violating the rules he set himself. Because of that, he accepts defeat without excuses, and the other guards can no longer question Lyth's ability. Urz calls Lyth genuinely strong, and says watching his future growth should be exciting. In a single duel, the hostile atmosphere around the newcomer begins to change, but Lyth has no time to enjoy the approval. Urz has been reassigned, and starting tomorrow the responsibility for protecting Princess Iris will fall much more heavily on Lyth. His first major assignment is an escort mission. Iris must travel to the Grand Duchy of Grawl for diplomacy, and only 3 guards will accompany her. On paper it sounds simple, but Iris already suspects an assassin is close. Lyth meets the other escorts, including the serious Larg and the intensely dedicated Lieutenant Zach. Even during preparation, the veteran soldiers keep training as if an attack could come at any moment. Larg reminds Lyth of Iris's warning. Someone inside the Royal Guard may be an assassin. The danger is not simply outside the carriage. It could be standing beside them in uniform. Iris explains that she obtained sensitive information and was nearly killed because of it. Since then, she has stopped trusting the personnel system that assigns her guards. Worse, the suspected assassin may be connected to Iris's younger sister, Princess Camilla. That is why Iris personally chose Lyth, an outsider whose loyalty has not been shaped by palace factions. After a long day of preparations, Lyth is exhausted and tries to find Iris's room. Unfortunately, his first quiet royal assignment is about to become awkward for an entirely different reason. Iris suddenly closes the distance and clings to Lyth, catching him completely off guard. The knight who stayed calm against bandits and Captain Urz has no idea how to handle an affectionate princess. Iris teasingly asks whether Lyth wants to spend the night together. His brain immediately stops working, and whatever composure he had left disappears. Lyth desperately tries to stop Iris before the situation becomes even more scandalous. Then the moment is interrupted by urgent movement outside. Larg arrives with critical news. Lyth is grateful for the interruption, but the message itself is far worse. Something is happening around the residence, and the princess may already be in danger. A report claims that thieves are raiding the area. Larg urges everyone to evacuate immediately, because staying inside could trap Iris once the attackers close in. There is no time for debate. Lyth focuses on getting the princess away from the danger before the supposed bandits can surround them. Then Lieutenant Zack points his blade at Iris. The raid was only a distraction, and the trusted officer reveals himself as the traitor inside the escort. Zack explains his plan coldly. Kill both Iris and Lyth, then erase the evidence. With the princess dead, he can blame the chaos on outside attackers and disappear behind an official story. The assassin opens with a lance-like attack, trying to end the betrayal before Lyth can fully react. Lyth immediately recognizes how dangerous the situation is. Protecting himself is one thing. Defending Iris while fighting a trained royal guard makes every movement harder. When the attack comes, Lyth grabs Iris and yanks her clear, placing his own body between the princess and Zack's weapon. The assassin's first clean kill is denied. Zack mocks the famous rookie, claiming Lyth is far less impressive than the rumors suggested. He still believes a 7th rank promotion cannot replace real experience. He even explains the cover story he intends to write. Zack heroically arrived to find Lyth assassinating the princess, then killed the traitor himself. Lyth answers by drawing his blade. If that is the report Zack wants, he will have to survive long enough to write it. Zack attacks again, but Lyth begins adapting faster than expected. The assassin's techniques are dangerous, yet every exchange gives the jobless knight something new to learn. The hidden voice activates twice. Lyth obtains stone lance and stone hand. In the middle of the assassination attempt, Zack is accidentally feeding his own arsenal to the man he wants dead. Realizing what is happening, Zack becomes furious. Seeing Lyth turn his techniques back against him is like fighting a mirror that grows stronger with every clash. Lyth combines the newly copied abilities with his existing magic and drives a powerful counterattack straight through Zack's defense. The assassin's advantage evaporates almost instantly. Once the exchange ends, Iris checks Lyth's wounds. He brushes them off, but the attack has confirmed something far more troubling than a single traitor. The immediate danger is over, and everyone still loyal to Iris regroups. Yet the assassination attempt proves the conspiracy has already reached the royal guard itself. Far away, a report reaches Duke Ride Wellesley. The subject is the son he threw out as worthless. Ride learns that Lyth has not only survived, he has recently been appointed to the royal guard. The rumors become even harder to believe. Lyth supposedly dominated the night exam and was promoted at extraordinary speed. Ride is told that the incompetent Jobless son used holy knight skills, earned Princess Iris's favor, and somehow reached 7th rank. Every detail contradicts the future Ride assumed Lyth would have. The Duke explodes in anger and demands an explanation. To him, Lee's rise sounds so impossible that there must be deception behind it. Ride immediately asks whether Kite knows what has happened. The comparison between the brothers has returned. And this time Lyth is the one moving ahead. The answer is yes. Kite is already aware that the brother who was discarded has become a royal guard, before the family can finish discussing it. Another figure intrudes on the gathering, carrying his own resentment toward Lyth's sudden success. The angry knight lashes out violently, unable to accept the rumors surrounding the classless newcomer. What began as gossip about Lyth is turning into a personal obsession for the people who feel threatened by him. The confrontation escalates as those around him struggle to calm the furious fighter. His problem is not simply Lyth's rank. It is the humiliation of seeing a jobless man surpass people blessed by the gods. He rages that the pathetic Lyth must have cheated to use celestial boost. In his mind, a classless man possessing a holy knight technique is proof of fraud rather than talent. The jealousy becomes obvious. This knight is still stuck at 9th rank, while Lyth has already become 7th. The hierarchy he trusted no longer makes sense. A man with no class has exclusive holy knight abilities and a rank above him. That contradiction becomes unbearable, and he decides it has to be exposed publicly. His fury erupts physically, smashing through the room as the others watch in alarm. If Lyth will not fall on his own, this rival intends to drag him down personally. He grips his weapon, and vows to settle the matter with strength. Rumors are no longer enough. He wants a stage where everyone can watch Lithe lose. The idea spreads among the resentful knights. Fortunately for them, a perfect opportunity is approaching. Someone warns them not to lose control before the chance arrives. If they want to humiliate Lithe, they need to do it where victory carries official weight. The answer is the upcoming dueling tournament. It offers exactly what they need: a public arena, powerful witnesses, and a direct path to 7th rank for the winner. The tournament is restricted to relatively inexperienced knights. For fighters below 7th rank, victory grants an automatic promotion, making the title an enormous prize for ambitious rookies. His rival is completely convinced he cannot lose. To him, the tournament is not competition, it is a chance to restore the natural order. He vows to claim victory and prove that Lithe's rise was nothing but a mistake. Back with Iris, Captain Urs checks on the princess. After the assassination attempt, she confirms she is unharmed, but the captain clearly knows more than he first revealed. Leith is surprised to find Urs nearby. The captain explains that he has been monitoring the situation rather than abandoning Iris completely. Urs deliberately reduced the visible security around the princess and watched from the shadows. The goal was to draw the hidden assassin into making a move. The plan worked. Urs had already noticed Lieutenant Zack behaving suspiciously, and Lithe's presence gave them the perfect bait to force the traitor into the open. The bigger revelation is worse. The assassination plot may be connected to Princess Camilla, Iris's younger sister, and a faction trying to seize the throne. Iris then points toward the upcoming national dueling tournament. Many influential nobles and knights will gather there, and she suspects Camilla's faction may move among them. For Lithe, the order is simple: enter the tournament and show everyone his strength. If their enemies believe the princess is weakly protected, he needs to destroy that assumption. Lithe accepts. A public tournament will expose him to enemies, but it will also give him access to countless powerful fighters, and, potentially, countless new skills. Tournament week arrives, and elite knightly orders flood the capital. The city welcomes some of the strongest young fighters in the empire. Among them is the Central Knightly Order, whose arrival immediately draws a crowd. The competition is no longer a local exam. Lithe is stepping onto a national stage. Then Lithe unexpectedly sees Sarah. Iris recognizes her as well, and Sarah is stunned to discover that her childhood friend is now standing beside the princess as a royal guard. Iris openly tells Sarah that she personally appointed Lithe. Lithe, in turn, makes it clear that Sarah's willingness to share her Holy Knight power was one of the reasons he could come this far. Iris notices the emotional connection immediately and asks Sarah whether she has feelings for Lithe. The question hits harder than any duel announcement. Sarah can barely answer before Iris cheerfully concludes that the situation has become much simpler. Lithe, meanwhile, realizes he may have walked into a romantic battlefield more dangerous than the arena. Iris declares that if Sarah likes Lithe, then the two women are rivals. Sarah is too stunned to know whether the princess is joking. Then Iris gives her a very real opportunity. Enter the tournament, join the royal guard, and she could work beside Lithe. Suddenly Sarah has a new reason to fight. Before the conversation can become even more awkward, trouble erupts nearby. A thief barrels through the crowd, turning the festive streets into chaos. The knights immediately prioritize the citizens, rather than chasing blindly. Lithe and the others split their attention between protecting bystanders and cutting off the thief's escape. The criminal responds by threatening the town itself, confident that forcing the knights to defend civilians will create an opening. A powerful fighter intercepts him with mocking confidence, treating the airborne criminal like nothing more than an annoying insect. Lithe quickly realizes the tournament has attracted monsters on both sides of the law. The clash ends almost before the crowd understands what happened. The criminal's rampage is stopped by a level of power that makes Lithe pay close attention. Lithe recognizes that the man involved is no ordinary knight. The surrounding whispers identify him as a famous sage, connected to the Eastern Knightly Order. The sage's presence is another reminder of what awaits in the tournament. Lithe will not be facing inexperienced exam candidates anymore. He will be sharing an arena with nationally renowned talent. The story shifts to the Lawrence Empire Dueling Tournament, a competition where elite knights from across the nation gather to test their strength and elevate their order's prestige. the great arena opens for the Lawrence Empire dueling tourney. Every major faction has sent fighters, and the entire capital is watching. The announcer fires up the crowd as the competitors prepare to enter. For many of these knights, one victory here can completely change their career. The tournament has produced heroes for years. And this year's prize is especially tempting. Lower-ranked champions can earn promotion to 7th rank. Only one fighter will be recognized as the strongest newcomer. Before the matches begin, the Empire introduces the legendary figures overseeing the event. The veterans who represent the standard every new knight is trying to reach. First is Leona Frost, captain of the Central Knight Order. Her popularity is overwhelming, although the no-nonsense commander seems far less impressed by the roaring crowd than the crowd is by her. Another celebrated captain, Regil Radner, enters to cheers. Even the commanders begin joking about bets, revealing just how seriously the different orders take this tournament's bragging rights. Ralph Sullivan and more renowned leaders are introduced, each famous for surviving battles that ordinary knights could never handle. Lythe is surrounded by the Empire's highest level of combat experience. Then royalty enters. The first princess of the Lawrence Empire is introduced with overwhelming praise for her grace, generosity, and popularity. Princess Iris steps into the arena to thunderous cheers. Lythe may know her as an impulsive woman who teases him relentlessly, but to the public she is one of the Empire's most beloved figures. With the dignitaries seated, the announcer finally turns to the competitors. The opening contender is about to set the tone for the entire tournament. A massive fighter enters, built like a walking fortress. His overwhelming physical strength makes the crowd erupt before he even throws a punch. The energy spikes as the enormous knight takes the stage, looking ready to explode into battle at the first signal. His name is Morris Brute, a tank-class warrior whose fighting spirit is obvious from a single glance. Morris is introduced as a promising Western knight who has already proven himself on real battlefields. His defense and raw power make him exactly the kind of opponent most rookies never want to face. Then the spotlight shifts to Sarah. Her overwhelming swordsmanship and rapid growth have already earned her a reputation as a genuine prodigy, and Lythe quietly hopes she can show everyone what years of training made her capable of. The commentators confirm that Sarah is one of the Central Order's rising stars. Morris may look like a fortress, but nobody expects her to be easy prey. Both fighters take their places as the crowd settles into anticipation. The first serious clash of the tournament is about to begin. The rules are announced. Leaving the ring or staying down for a 10 count means defeat, and officials may stop a fight if the situation becomes lethal. Every contestant will wear protective equipment, but the danger is still real. Priests cast a protective barrier around the arena. With the spectators shielded and the fighters ready, there is nothing left to do but start the first round. At last, the first round of the Lawrence Empire dueling tournament begins. The crowd erupts, but the opening match is more personal than anyone realizes, because Sarah's opponent did not become this strong by accident. Across the arena stands Morris Brute, a hardened knight whose calm stare hides years of brutal frontline experience. Before the first real clash, the story briefly turns back to the reason he picked up a weapon in the first place. Morris was never born into privilege or blessed with an easy path. His strength was forged somewhere far less glamorous, in a small village where surviving one terrible day changed the course of his entire life. He grew up peacefully in a tiny settlement between the Lawrence Empire and Novolturna, surrounded by cattle and ordinary villagers. Then one day, that peaceful life ended when a monster descended on the village. A blood tiger attacked without warning. For the young Morris, it was the first time he saw just how helpless ordinary people could become when a powerful beast appeared, and help was still nowhere in sight. The villagers had already sent word to the knightly order, but reinforcements would take time. Against a monster like this, every second mattered, and waiting quietly could mean watching the entire village get torn apart. The blood tiger lunged into the settlement, turning panic into chaos. Morris could only watch as the gap between trained warriors and powerless villagers became painfully clear. People screamed for everyone to run, trying to pull the vulnerable out of danger. Yet even in the middle of that terror, someone stepped forward instead of fleeing. A knight ordered the villagers back and faced the beast head-on, promising to finish it in a single blow. To young Morris, That sight was unforgettable, the first image of the strength he desperately wanted for himself. The clash ended with overwhelming force. What had looked like an unstoppable monster was brought down by trained hands, proving to Morris that strength could turn certain tragedy into survival. Afterward, the knight praised the boy and asked his name. Morris Brute. That small exchange stayed with him, because from that day on, Morris no longer wanted to be someone who simply waited to be saved. He wanted strength. Real strength, enough to stand between danger and the people behind him. That desire became the foundation of everything he would do next. Morris eventually joined the Western Knight Order and trained under Captain Rigel. He threw himself into battle after battle, determined to rise to the top of the tournament, and prove he was nothing like the powerless boy he used to be. Back in the present, that experience explodes into motion. Morris presses forward with the heavy confidence of someone who has spent years fighting opponents that were actually trying to kill him. Sarah refuses to give ground. Their weapons collide again and again, and the opening match instantly becomes far more intense than the spectators expected. Neither fighter is willing to surrender the initiative. Morris relies on raw durability and battlefield instincts, while Sarah searches for the smallest opening in his defense. Then Morris is knocked slightly off balance. Sarah sees it immediately, one tiny mistake, one brief chance, and she moves before he can recover. She darts in to capitalize, forcing Morris to defend instead of attack. But breaking through a knight who has survived the front lines is not going to be simple. Morris braces behind his defense and absorbs the pressure. Sarah has speed and technique, but his shield turns every clean opening into another obstacle she has to solve. The exchange grows fiercer, and neither side manages to claim a decisive advantage. What looked like a straightforward first-round match is rapidly becoming a test of experience against ingenuity. The commentators realize just how evenly matched they are. Morris swings his massive hammer with frightening ease, something only possible because his body has been conditioned by years of real combat. Since joining the Western Knight Order, Morris has never backed down from monsters or magical beasts. He has spent years on the front line protecting his comrades, and that accumulated battle experience is now bearing down on Sarah. Yet Sarah is still impossible to predict. She only recently joined the knightly order, but every exchange reveals another layer of talent. Even the veterans watching cannot afford to look away. Morris casually addresses her as girl, and Sarah immediately corrects him. She has a name. Morris repeats it to himself. Sarah. Apparently, remembering that name is about to become much easier than expected, because in the middle of the fight, Morris suddenly confesses that he likes her and asks her out. The arena practically freezes. Who confesses during a tournament match? Apparently Morris Brute does. Sarah is stunned by how absurdly fast he fell for her. Morris, however, looks completely serious, as if taking a hammer to the heart is just another battlefield injury. Sarah tells him he can have her answer after the match, but warns him not to expect mercy because of it. Morris grins. That is exactly the answer he wanted from his opponent. The flirtation ends as quickly as it began, and the weapons come right back up. If anything, Morris is even more fired up now. Soon Sarah is forced down onto one knee. Morris keeps up the pressure, and for the first time, it looks as though his relentless power may actually overwhelm her. But Sarah is not finished. She shifts her weight, watching his approach instead of panicking. The moment Morris commits, she prepares a counter from an angle he does not expect. Morris charges and dares her to run if she can. Sarah has no intention of running. She turns the attack itself into the opening she needs. With a sudden acrobatic movement, Sarah slips around the strike and reverses position. The crowd barely has time to follow her before she is already setting up the counterattack. She drives her sword into the ground, uses it as leverage, and swings her body around. Instead of meeting Morris's strength head-on, Sarah converts her momentum into a completely different attack. Her roundhouse kick flashes toward Morris's neck. For a heartbeat it looks clean, until he raises his defense and stops it before the blow can land. Morris blocks successfully, but even he has to acknowledge the precision behind Sarah's movements. This is no inexperienced recruit stumbling through her first tournament. He boasts that his shield can stop any attack, while admitting Sarah's skill is impressive. Sarah reaches the obvious conclusion. Then she does not need to defeat Morris first. She needs to break the shield, and she tells him to watch closely. Sarah has already begun working on the answer, even if Morris has not realized it yet. Her strategy comes from childhood. A memory surfaces of Sarah hurting her hand and her father gently tending it. The same man who once taught her how to break objects far tougher than herself. As a child, Sarah had watched her father smash hard stone with a hammer and asked how he did it. His answer was not simply hit harder. It was about understanding where strength should be applied. He taught her to feel the stone, recognize the minerals inside it, find the weakest point and strike there. Even something solid can collapse quickly if you understand exactly where it is vulnerable. But Sarah had asked the obvious question, what if there is no weak point you can find? Her father's answer was even simpler, and much more useful in a fight like this. Keep striking the same place. Create your own weakness. So Sarah repeatedly attacks one precise section of Morris's shield until the damage finally begins to spread. A crack appears. Morris's supposedly unbreakable defense has started to fail, and Sarah now has exactly the opening she spent the entire match constructing. She has deliberately created a weakness for her celestial blade to exploit. A shield that should never have yielded this easily is being dismantled through patience, accuracy, and relentless repetition. The experienced knights watching understand what that means. Sarah must have trained this precision long before joining the order. Her raw class is impressive, but her real danger lies in how intelligently she uses it. Even Morris is thrilled. Instead of being discouraged, he seems more fascinated than ever. The stronger Sarah proves to be, the more convinced he becomes that falling for her was the right decision. Now the real battle begins. Morris charges again, ready to abandon caution and settle the match through sheer force. Then Sarah does something bizarre. She sheathes her sword. With Morris still attacking, she deliberately puts away her main weapon. The spectators cannot understand it. Is she seriously planning to fight Morris without drawing her blade? Against a man with that much power, the decision looks almost suicidal. Morris does not slow down. He barrels forward, determined to punish what looks like arrogance before Sarah can reveal whatever trick she has prepared. His attack lands, but the damaged weapon and shield finally give way, shattering into pieces. The fragments rise into the air and begin fusing together, transforming the battlefield yet again. Morris unleashes a destructive technique from the broken pieces, turning what looked like a ruined defense into one last overwhelming offensive weapon. Sarah faces the incoming power without drawing her sword. Whatever she is planning, she has committed to it completely. Morris suddenly loses his cool. It is not the broken shield that enrages him. It is the fact that Sarah still refuses to unsheath her blade, as if he is not worthy of her full strength. The people who know Morris immediately see the danger. Once his emotions take over, the disciplined frontline knight starts fighting exactly the way Sarah wants him to. He attacks more aggressively, chasing satisfaction instead of victory. Sarah gives ground just enough to keep him coming. Every reckless step makes Morris easier to read. The match is no longer about who is stronger. It is about who can stay in control of themselves. Finally, Morris snaps and demands that Sarah draw her sword, accusing her of mocking him. That outburst confirms it. Sarah's provocation has worked perfectly. Morris lunges, without the patience he showed earlier. Sarah has successfully stripped away the experience that made him so difficult to beat. She slips past another desperate attack. The opening she has been waiting for is finally there. Morris tries to recover, but the rhythm of the match has already changed. Sarah is now dictating every exchange. She closes in, ready to finish the fight on her own terms. Morris wanted to see her real answer. He is about to get it. As you wish. Sarah finally responds to his challenge, and in that instant the entire match turns. Morris realizes too late that he has been manipulated into exposing himself. With a rueful smile, he can only admit that Sarah was right. Game, set, match. Sarah defeats Morris in the tournament's opening battle, earning the first victory, while the arena erupts around her. Captain Leona immediately sees the brilliance behind it. Sarah kept her sword sheathed to provoke Morris, waited for anger to destroy his composure, and then countered the moment his disciplined defense disappeared. It was a dangerous plan. If Morris had stayed calm, Sarah could have been seriously injured. But Leona recognizes that the young holy knight possesses exceptional judgment as well as talent. Sarah's rapid rise makes more sense once her class is mentioned. She is a holy knight, one of the rare elites recognized by the gods, But even that does not fully explain how quickly she is growing. Morris, meanwhile, has not forgotten his mid-battle confession. The instant the match ends, he asks Sarah for the answer she promised, practically vibrating with anticipation. Sarah gives him the answer clearly. Strength alone is not enough, and whatever hopes Morris had are about to be crushed far more decisively than his shield was. She already likes someone else. Morris survives the battle, only to take a direct hit from the one attack no shield can block, so Morris leaves the opening round with two things, a tournament loss and a hopeless crush. Sarah, however, immediately turns toward the person she actually cares about. Lith. The moment she spots him, her expression changes. Why is Lith here? The reunion she wanted is about to collide with a far more uncomfortable family encounter. Sarah demands an answer, calling Lith by name. But before the two can properly talk, another voice and another presence drag old wounds straight back into the open. The announcers celebrate Sarah's victory, while the arena prepares for repairs. Away from the crowd's excitement, Lith's past is already catching up with him. Because Sarah and Morris damaged the stage badly enough to require maintenance, the next match is delayed. That pause gives the Wellesley family exactly enough time for an argument nobody planned to have in public. Sarah keeps pressing Lith for an explanation. He cannot simply disappear from home, reappear as a royal guard, and expect the people who knew him to act as though nothing happened. Then Duke Ride appears. He already knows the son he expelled has become a knight in royal guard. Now he sees Lith standing beside Princess Iris with his own eyes. Ride tries to shut the conversation down, telling outsiders not to interfere. Lith, however, is no longer the powerless boy who silently accepted every judgment made about him. The family history hangs over them. As the eldest son, Lith was once expected to inherit the Wellesley dukedom, until one blank oracle erased that future overnight. Kite enters the confrontation as well. He tells his older brother that he owes him gratitude. But the tension between them is still too raw for a simple thank you to fix everything. Old resentment flares. The brothers have both changed since Lith left home, and neither quite knows what to do with the person standing in front of him now. Lith does not deny the past. He failed to receive a class, shattered his father's expectations, and humiliated a household built on status and divine recognition. But after leaving, everything changed. Lith passed the knight exam, awakened the strange ability to acquire skills, and somehow became a royal guard. Even so, he insists Kite. The Holy Knight is still the proper heir. Lith says being expelled was only natural. In a society where class determines worth, a jobless heir was unacceptable. Yet Princess Iris is listening, and she clearly hates that conclusion. The silence is heavy. For years, Lith treated his exile as something he deserved. Now someone powerful enough to challenge that belief is standing beside him. Ride bluntly says that if Lith understands he does not belong, he should leave. Iris immediately rejects that verdict. This is no longer just a family matter. The surrounding knights recognize her at once. The first princess of the Lawrence Empire. Iris steps into the argument personally, turning Duke Ride's private judgment into a challenge against the royal family's own decision. Iris explains that she witnessed Lith's abilities during the knight exam and personally recruited him. She also knows the Wellesley records. The family expelled him solely after his oracle returned no class. Ride answers with the worldview he has lived by for decades. Classes are absolute. Mages and fighters stand above peasants and merchants, while holy knights and saints occupy the highest ranks of society. To him, receiving a high class means being acknowledged by the gods themselves. The dueling tournament is therefore a stage for those chosen elites, not someone heaven seemingly ignored. Ride may not understand what Iris saw in Lith, but he cannot overlook one fact. The Royal Guard recruited a man who was never given any class at all. In Ride's eyes, that makes Lith someone abandoned by the gods. And if the gods rejected him, then surely he has no place among their chosen warriors. He says it without hesitation. Lith's existence was never acknowledged by the gods, so someone like him has no right to stand here. The words are cruel, but this time, Lith does not have to face them alone. Iris admits Ride's logic may fit the traditions of their world. Then she gives him her own answer, one built not on divine titles, but on what she has personally seen Lith do. Every citizen supports society with whatever skills they possess, Iris argues. A class does not decide whether a person can contribute, and weaknesses can be compensated for through effort, experience, and others. More importantly, when Iris was nearly assassinated, Lythe confronted the killer without hesitation and saved her life. The instinct to protect another person is not something an oracle can simply hand out. Ride stares at the princess and asks if she truly intends to defy the will of the gods. Iris does not flinch. If divine judgment says Lythe is worthless, then perhaps divine judgment deserves to be questioned. Before the confrontation can escalate further, Iris abruptly changes direction. She has a suggestion, one that will let actions know what words clearly cannot. Right on cue, the priests finish repairing the arena. The first match has left everyone fired up, and now the stage is ready for the next battle. One that may force the Wellesley family to confront Lythe's strength directly. The next tournament bout begins, and the crowd immediately wonders what kind of monster will step into the arena next. After Sarah's dramatic opening victory, expectations are already sky high. The announcers hype a warrior, blessed with explosive celestial power. Someone known for overwhelming opponents through sheer force. The next match is clearly not going to be subtle. Then one of the Eastern Night Order's strongest young fighters enters the ring. The cheers swell as his identity becomes obvious. Kite Wellesley, Lythe's younger brother. Kite walks into the arena with the confidence expected of a holy knight. For the spectators, he represents exactly what a noble heir is supposed to look like. But the question remains, who will stand across from him? Iris already has someone in mind, and her answer is guaranteed to upset half the arena. She proposes the simplest possible test. If Duke Ride doubts Lythe's worth, then let Lythe prove his ability where everyone can see it. In the arena itself, the suggestion instantly changes the mood. This is no longer just another tournament match. It is becoming a public trial of whether a jobless man deserves his position. Iris raises the stakes even further. If Kite defeats Lythe, Kite can earn immediate promotion to 7th rank. With thousands of witnesses, nobody will be able to dispute the result. The offer is almost too perfect. Ride accepts, confident that a properly chosen holy knight should have no trouble defeating the son the gods supposedly abandoned. Before Kite enters fully, he is warned not to lower his guard. Whatever his feelings toward Lythe, this match will punish even a moment of carelessness. Kite declares that he will show everyone the power of a holy knight. In his mind, losing to a jobless opponent is not even an option. Then Lythe is introduced. The young royal guard recruited on merit, despite possessing the strangest class imaginable. The audience murmurs, confused by what they have just heard. His class is announced plainly, Jobless. One word is enough to turn curiosity into disbelief. The spectators cannot understand how such a person could even stand in this tournament. A jobless fighter facing a holy knight sounds like a joke with an obvious ending. Boos rain down. Some people demand Lythe leave the arena, while others start throwing trash. To them, his mere presence insults the divine hierarchy they have trusted their entire lives. The referee forces the match forward and ignores the heckling. Lythe does the same. He has heard worse from people whose opinions mattered far more. The second match officially begins. Kite Wellesley versus Lythe Wellesley. Two brothers, two completely different judgments from the gods, and only one arena to settle the difference. Kite wastes no time. He intends to finish this in an instant, overwhelming Lythe before the jobless fighter can reveal any tricks. He launches the Holy Knight's celestial blade, pouring divine power into a decisive opening strike. The crowd expects Lythe to be blown away immediately. The attack detonates with enough force to shake the arena. For a moment, dust and magical light swallow both fighters, making the result impossible to see. The spectators stare into the blast, waiting for Lythe to fall. Instead, something has gone very wrong with Kite's perfect opening. As the smoke clears, the positions of the brothers tell the story. The supposedly helpless jobless fighter has not been erased at all. Kite wanted an instant finish, but now his own movement has been disrupted. Lythe has turned the Holy Knight's strongest opening into a trap. Kite is caught completely off guard. The technique he trusted to end the fight has instead exposed him to a counter he never prepared for. One participant crashes down almost instantly. The crowd is stunned by how quickly the balance shifted, because nobody expected the jobless fighter to control the exchange. Iris watches closely as Captain Urs explains the celestial blade. The Holy Knight condenses magical power at the sword's tip, preparing an explosive release that is devastating from the proper range. Once that stored energy is released, The technique becomes one of the Holy Knight's ultimate moves. But every ultimate technique has conditions, and Lyth has already begun reading them. If an opponent gets inside the effective range before the explosion fully develops, the advantage changes. What makes the Celestial Blade overwhelming at distance can become a weakness up close. Lyth exploits exactly that timing. Instead of retreating from Kite's power, he moves into the space where the technique is hardest to use safely. In a blur, Lyth closes the distance and intercepts his brother's sword. The audience barely understands what happened before Kite's attack is neutralized. Realizes Lyth is completely seeing through Kite's movements. The man who once struggled to survive ordinary combat is now reading a Holy Knight like an open book. Even those who believe in Lyth are surprised by the improvement. He has grown again, and Kite is discovering that this is not the brother he remembers from home. The exchange ends with Kite forced back while Lyth remains composed. The spectators begin to wonder whether the impossible upset might actually happen. Murmurs spread through the stands. The Jobless fighter is unexpectedly strong. And worse for the old hierarchy, he looks completely comfortable against a Holy Knight. Soon the heckling turns into excitement. Watching a supposedly worthless man overpower one of the god's chosen warriors is simply too dramatic for the crowd to ignore. That is exactly why Iris arranged this fight. If Lyth loses, people will say a Jobless man losing to a Holy Knight is natural. But if he wins, everyone must acknowledge that class alone cannot define strength. Captain quietly praises Iris's calculation. This is not merely a duel, it is a public demonstration designed to change how people see Lyth. Back in the arena, the brothers reset. Kite understands now that brute force will not be enough, while Lyth waits for the next move without a trace of panic. Kite launches another attack, pushing his Holy Knight abilities harder. The arena explodes with movement as the fight finally becomes personal. Celestial power surges around Kite's weapon. He refuses to let the match end with his older brother casually dismantling everything he was praised for becoming. Lyth responds with perfect timing, slipping through another dangerous exchange and forcing Kite toward the edge of the ring. Then Kite is thrown completely outside the arena. Under tournament rules, he has only a few seconds to return, or the match is over. The Eastern Knights are shaken. Kite may be a rookie, but he is still a Holy Knight, and Lyth is handling him far more completely than anyone expected. For the neutral spectators, however, the match has become irresistible. Every second tears another hole in the belief that a class automatically predicts the winner. Kite scrambles to recover before the count ends. Pride, family expectations, and his entire identity as the chosen heir are suddenly pressing down on him at once. He makes it back into the fight, refusing to let a ring out decide everything. Lyth gives him the chance to continue rather than rushing the finish. The next collision is even harder. Kite finally begins showing the strength that earned him recognition as a Holy Knight. Lyth studies him carefully. Beneath the anger and rivalry, he can tell his younger brother truly has become strong, and that makes what happens next more complicated. Lyth tells Kite to give up before he hurts himself. Naturally, that is the last thing Kite wants to hear from the brother he was raised to replace. The duel pauses at an emotional breaking point. To understand why Kite refuses to back down, the story turns to something Lyth experienced before this tournament ever began. In a poor district of the capital, Lyth once stopped at a bakery when a shopkeeper warned him that the neighborhood was full of thieves. Almost immediately, that warning proved accurate. A child stole bread and ran. The district sits on the eastern outskirts, a densely populated slum where many people assigned lower classes are forced to live. Simply being labeled lower class means discrimination, fewer jobs, and fewer ways to survive. For some residents, theft is not a choice born from greed. It is what remains after society closes every other door. Lyth catches the young thief, but does not punish him. Instead, he tells the boy to stop living this way, and tries to understand what pushed him into stealing. The child is shocked. Lyth approached so quietly that he never noticed him at all, and that effortless movement immediately captures his attention. When the boy tries to escape again, Lyth stops him without hurting him. Strength, for Lyth, is becoming something very different from simple domination. Rather than asking for mercy, the boy suddenly asks Lyth to teach him the technique he just used. He wants to become strong too. Lyth realizes how hard life is in this town. A child should not need combat skills just to feel safe enough to eat. The boy admits he cannot get enough food because he is weak. He also wants to learn those cool moves, and Lyth notices something important. Despite stealing, the boy still came alone and responded to kindness. I want to become strong just like you. The words hit Lyth harder than expected, because he remembers being a child who once said almost the same thing. So instead of walking away, Lyth offers to train him. For someone once told he had nothing to give. Becoming another person's model of strength carries a strange weight. Lyth agrees on one condition. If the boy starts, he cannot quit halfway. The child immediately promises he will not. That promise echoes another memory, one involving Lyth and Kite as children, when the brothers were still capable of meeting each other without resentment between them. Their training begins with brutal running drills. Lyth explains that without stamina and controlled breathing, no amount of technique will matter against a truly strong opponent. He teaches footwork next. Look down, lose awareness, and an enemy can end the fight instantly. Every boring repetition is meant to become survival instinct later. During a break, Lyth forces the exhausted trainee to eat and recover. The boy cannot understand why a noble would ever train this harshly when he could simply live in luxury. That question brings back Lyth's own childhood. His father was a powerful combat class noble, and young Lyth believed becoming strong was the only way to earn Duke Ride's recognition. He had been told his class division would likely grant him something great. Kite understood the same pressure in his own way, even though Duke Ride rarely came home to see him. One day, young Kite excitedly told Lyth it was his mother's birthday. Their father was supposed to visit, so he invited his older brother over to eat with them. The two boys bought a cake together, and Kite could barely contain his excitement. To him, this was supposed to be a rare day, when his scattered family finally felt whole. Kite proudly brought Lyth home and introduced him to his mother. She welcomed him warmly, and for a brief moment the gathering looked completely ordinary. They shared food and cake around the table. But the moment Duke Ride arrived, the truth behind Kite's family began to surface. Ride called Lyth aside and told him to sit. What followed was not a family conversation. It was an explanation of why Kite existed in the first place. The atmosphere turned cold. Lyth sensed immediately that this visit carried a purpose far beyond celebrating a birthday. Then the brothers realized the impossible connection between them. Lyth could only ask why his father was here, and why this other households knew him so intimately. The answer exposed a second family hidden behind the Wellesley name. Kite was not merely another child Lyth happened to know. He was his younger half-brother. Kite's mother affectionately called Ride Darling. Confirming everything, Lyth stared at his father, unable to understand how long this had been happening behind his back. Ride answered with brutal practicality. How had he become a noble in a single generation? Because he possessed the strength of a knight and used it to climb. He explained that his position had always depended on power. If he ever became weak, someone else could take everything from him. To Ride, society was survival of the fittest. He had risen all the way to Duke through strength, so he needed an equally powerful successor to protect that position. As the eldest son, Lyth had originally been the obvious candidate. But what if Lyth reached 18 and failed to receive a high class? Ride refused to gamble the future of the Wellesley household on a single child. That was why he created a second candidate, Kite. Ride intended to keep the truth hidden until class division day, but the brothers discovered it years earlier. Before leaving, Ride gave Kite one cold instruction: do not disappoint me. Even his affection came wrapped in the language of usefulness. After that day, Kite says their father barely visited. In his mind, Ly became connected to everything that went wrong, and years of resentment began growing in silence. Kite eventually understood the uglier truth. Ride had used both him and his mother as insurance for the dukedom, yet his mother still waited faithfully for the man to return home. To Kite, being called a replacement was unbearable. Even Captain Ursa's treatment of Lyth later only deepened the anger he had spent years swallowing. Then class division day finally came. When Lyth received nothing, part of Kite was ashamed to admit he felt relieved. At last he thought their father would recognize him instead. And Kite did receive a class. The Holy Knight class everyone wanted. For the first time, he believed all that pain had given him a place that could not be taken away. That is why Kite admits he is jealous of Lyth now. Lyth lost everything, yet somehow built a strength that makes class itself look less absolute. Back in the arena, Kite attacks again. Lyth warns that repeating the same technique will not change the outcome, but Kite already knows that. The referee watches closely as the brothers prepare for the decisive exchange. Kite is no longer fighting only to prove he is stronger. He is fighting years of insecurity. Lyth remembers the child from the slums. He has always rushed toward people in trouble, even a boy who stole bread. Perhaps that instinct is the one thing class division never had the power to measure. Kite commits to one final attack. The arena tightens around the brothers as both prepare to put everything into the next collision. Their weapons crash together with enough force to tear across the stage. Lyth's strange control over borrowed abilities begins showing a new level of sophistication. He wraps celestial power around his weapon and uses it to slice directly through Kite's attack, instead of merely blocking it. The technique is familiar, but the application is completely different. Lyth gives his brother one warning. If Kite does not want to die, he needs to use Celestial Boast now. The casual words make it obvious how dangerous Lyth's next move will be. Kite responds with everything he has. Holy Knight power surges through his body as he tries to survive the attack and prove his strength one last time. The impact throws Kite out of the ring again, and the referee begins the count. This time the younger brother has almost nothing left to force himself back up. The experts finally understand what Lyth did. Rather than using Celestial Blade normally, he concentrated magical power into his sword and manipulated it like a mage, dispersing Kite's sacred sword from within. That should be impossible for someone without a mage class. Yet because Lyth has copied magical attacks before, he can apply those principles to other skills. The terrifying question is no longer whether Jobless can grow, but how far this growth can go. Kite cannot return to the arena before the count expires. For the first time, the result is no longer something either brother can argue with. The referee declares Lyth the winner. A jobless knight has defeated a holy knight in front of the entire empire, and the crowd that once booed him is forced to reconsider everything it assumed. Kite remains outside the ring as the decision becomes official. Some spectators even wonder whether he ran away. But the truth is simpler. Lyth's final strike completely overwhelmed him. After the match, a strange young man approaches Lyth and introduces himself as Julius Argyle. He congratulates Lyth and admits he enjoyed watching the fight far more than expected. Julius immediately notices the impossible part. Lyth is supposedly jobless, yet he used skills that should belong to other classes. Around them, rumors spread about the mysterious royal guard, who just defeated a holy knight. Kite, meanwhile, struggles with the result. As a high-class holy knight, he cannot accept that someone rejected by the gods has surpassed him. The loss leaves one thought burning in his mind. He needs more power. Before leaving, Kite shouts that the match between them is not truly over. The next time they meet, he intends to come back stronger. Lyth finally turns to Julius and asks what he actually wants. The sage did not approach him merely to offer congratulations. Julius smiles and gets straight to the point. The skill Lyth showed confirms his suspicion. Jobless is hiding far more than the audience has seen. How can someone without a class use abilities from several classes? Julius wants the answer, but even more than that, he wants to fight someone who can keep him entertained. He leaves with a promise to look forward to their eventual match. For Lyth, that casual smile is more unsettling than an open threat. The tournament continues with another fighter, Claire, unleashing a holy storm of blades from the void. Her opening attack fills the arena with enough weapons to overwhelm an ordinary opponent instantly, but the attack does nothing. Every blade disappears into the defense of her opponent, as if the spell never carried any power at all. The dark mage facing her mocks the careless strike, telling the young woman to actually watch where she attacks. He has not even begun showing the dangerous part of his ability. He reveals the secret of his cloak. It is not merely armor. It absorbs incoming magical attacks, turning Claire's strongest defense into fuel for his own counterattack. Claire assumes she has understood the trick. Damage absorption. The dark mage grins, because that assumption is exactly what he wanted. A shadow technique erupts without warning. Claire's expression changes as the darkness reaches her, before she can reset her defense. The attack sends her flying toward the boundary. One sudden counter is enough to completely overturn the match. Claire is knocked out of bounds, and the referee begins the count. The Eastern Knight Order's Dark Mage Fang takes the victory with frightening efficiency. The audience can barely process how quickly it ended. Claire entered with a spectacular barrage, only to be removed from the arena by an opponent who never looked pressured. Fang coldly remarks that on a real battlefield, he would never spare an enemy just because the contest had protective rules. The message is clear. He fights like someone accustomed to killing. The next bout pits the Western Knight Order's top martial artist against an opponent from the Eastern Order. The tournament keeps escalating, bringing out specialists from every corner of the empire. Then the name of the Eastern participant is announced, Julius Argyle. When he is slow to appear, the crowd wonders if the strange sage has somehow gotten scared. Julius finally strolls in and casually apologizes for keeping everyone waiting. He looks far too relaxed for someone about to face one of the West's strongest fighters. The opening exchange immediately explains why. Julius breaks through an extremely high-level magical barrier with ease, displaying a level of magical output that shocks even experienced knights. Gao, the Western Order's toughest martial fighter, is famous for a body like steel. Yet despite all that confidence, Julius defeats him before the West can claim its first tournament win. Julius barely seems satisfied. To him, another easy victory is simply another moment of boredom. What excites him is something rarer. A toy capable of surviving long enough to make combat interesting, and he believes he may finally have found one. With the early rounds complete, Julius looks forward to the next stage. The tournament is finally producing opponents strong enough to hold his attention. The spectators praise the intensity of the matches so far. Every order has shown a different style of strength, but only a handful of fighters remain. The semi-finalists of the Lawrence Empire Dueling Tournament are officially decided. The competition has narrowed to the Empire's most dangerous young combatants. Names and matchups are announced to roaring cheers. From this point onward, every victory brings the contestants closer to national recognition. But the semifinals will not begin immediately. The next stage is scheduled 1 week later, giving every surviving fighter time to train, recover, and prepare new strategies. Before anyone can settle down, a far stranger sight steals the audience's attention. An ancient dragon appears above the tournament grounds. Its arrival is so flashy that the entire venue looks upward. Then a familiar voice apologizes, as if riding a legendary creature into an arena were merely a slightly excessive entrance. King Richard III laughs and admits he may have made himself too conspicuous. Naturally, arriving on the back of an ancient dragon makes subtlety impossible. The announcers lose all composure as the king of the Lawrence Empire descends into the tournament venue aboard the legendary beast. The creature is identified as a glowing flame dragon, an ancient dragon said to have inhabited the Dark Continent since ancient times. It is incredibly rare, ferocious, and powerful enough to be treated as a living mystery. Even more astonishing, the dragon has acknowledged Richard's strength. Taming such a creature is not something royal blood can accomplish on its own. Richard asks for the microphone. The crowd quiets immediately, expecting a ceremonial speech, but the king chooses to talk about strength itself. He points out that every tournament participant is an excellent warrior. Are they strong simply because the gods gave them high classes? Richard's answer is no. A class provides potential, not mastery. A scholar must study to make good decisions. A mage cannot use advanced magic without learning. A fighter must train to understand weapons, timing, and judgment. Even failure has value. Every frustrating defeat becomes experience that can be used later, if a person is willing to learn from it, instead of hiding from it. Richard tells the crowd that frustration can expose one's immaturity. Painful as it is, recognizing weakness is the first step toward correcting it. So his message is simple: challenge yourself. Do not treat failure as proof that you should stop. Repeated challenges and setbacks eventually become strength. That cycle is how ordinary effort can carry someone far beyond the limit others expected. Everyone already possesses some form of strength within themselves, Richard says. The real question is whether they choose to use and develop it. Even Lythe feels encouraged. Iris jokes that her father occasionally says something worthy of a king after all, earning an immediate threat to send her home early. Richard then reveals the tournament's special prize. The winning knightly order will earn the right to visit the ancient dragon village where these legendary creatures reside. That announcement creates even more questions. Why offer access to a place almost nobody can reach? The king clearly has another purpose behind this tournament. While everyone speculates, the semi-finalists resume training without rest. They have 1 week, and every surviving fighter knows the next opponent will be far more dangerous. Swordsmanship, martial arts, and magic are refined day after day. Each participant trains for a different goal, but all of them are pushing toward the same battlefield. While Lythe and the other semi-finalists focus on training, a very different meeting begins elsewhere. The tournament may be public, but something far more dangerous is moving behind it. Elsewhere, top officials of the Eastern Order gather in secret. One man complains about another boring meeting until James forces everyone to get serious. The hostility inside the room is obvious. These are supposed allies, yet they can barely tolerate each other. And that may be exactly what makes their conspiracy so dangerous. At last they say their Eastern Night Order plan is reaching its final stage. The objective is horrifyingly direct. King Richard III must die. So far, the conspiracy has advanced smoothly. One earlier setback was unexpected, but the plot remains intact, and the conspirators are ready to move. Their greatest obstacle is not the royal guard or the army. It is Richard himself, whose combat power becomes nearly untouchable as long as the glowing flame dragon remains at his side. The dragon and king once fought, then became sworn allies. Their pact binds the beast to protect Richard until the end of his life, making ordinary attacks practically useless against him. In other words, defeating the king means defeating the dragon too. Even an army may fail. But Princess Camilla has apparently devised a strategy that can overcome both. Then Camilla herself enters the secret meeting. Iris's younger sister politely asks everyone to sit, and even tells them they do not need to address her so formally. The men may call themselves conspirators, but Camilla is clearly more than a decorative royal accomplice. The strategy they are relying on belongs to her. Even her allies admit the plan is bold enough to work, though some still question whether it is actually feasible against Richard's overwhelming protection. Duke Ride is asked what concerns him. His presence reveals something deeply uncomfortable. The Wellesley patriarch is closer to this conspiracy than Lythe could ever imagine. The discussion turns heated. Ride reacts violently to one of the conspirators' provocations, but the disguise and preparations around the plan are meant to remove any remaining uncertainty. Camilla calmly asks whether anyone can identify another flaw in her strategy. The room falls back into calculation. Emotion cannot be allowed to ruin what they have prepared. Privately, Camilla thinks about the coming tournament. The next time she sees her father and sister may be the last. And she says she is looking forward to it. 1 week later, the tournament resumes at a historic arena said to stand on land once ruled by demons. Legends of ancient battles hang over the venue as the semi-final day begins. The crowd returns more excited than ever. Even the Western Order, despite losing all its fighters, treats the experience as valuable training for future missions. Commanders from the different knightly orders gather to watch. Everyone knows the remaining fighters are no longer simply promising recruits. They are the Empire's newest monsters. Then the royal sisters make their entrance together. First Princess Iris Lawrence and second Princess Camilla Lawrence. The audience erupts at the sight of both heirs. Iris asks where Camilla has been and says their father worries about her. Camilla answers with an unsettling line. She does not think there will be many more opportunities for them to meet at court. King Richard III follows. The crowd welcomes him enthusiastically, unaware that a plan to kill him is already moving beneath the tournament. With the royal family present, the announcer introduces the semi-final contestants. Every remaining match now carries consequences far beyond a simple trophy. One side includes a Holy Knight level contender, proof that divine classes still dominate the expected hierarchy of strength. Another announced matchup is even stranger. Dark Mage Fang versus Jobless Lythe Wellesley. Once again, Lythe's class sounds absurd beside his opponent's title. Fang notices that Lythe looks exhausted and covered in injuries, apparently from an unusually busy week of preparation. He mocks him, suggesting Lythe may not even survive long enough to reach the finals. Lythe asks what he means. Fang answers with complete confidence. Obviously, he intends to defeat him before that can happen. Before Lythe's match, however, a fierce gust explodes across the venue. The wind swirls around Julius with such force that it reaches the spectator seats. Julius is delighted. Across from him stands Sarah, and he treats the Holy Knight like a new toy he finally gets to play with. Their semifinal begins. Unlike Morris, Julius does not rely on one weapon or one element. His threat comes from the terrifying variety hidden behind the title, Sage. The first exchange happens almost too quickly to follow. Sarah attacks, Julius counters, and both begin testing how much of their real ability the other can handle. Sarah appears to land a strike, only to discover she hit an afterimage. Julius has already moved, turning her successful attack into a trap. The counter seems to connect directly with Sarah. For a moment, the audience fears the fight may be over before she can even show her strength. Instead, Julius looks pleased. Sarah survives, and his expression says everything. He may actually get to enjoy this match. He immediately follows with another elemental attack. Sarah realizes the real problem. Julius is not limited to one magical attribute. Different elements begin chaining together, forcing Sarah to react to completely different properties with almost no time between attacks. Sarah reaches for her sword while trying to identify what Julius is using. His equipment itself seems designed to support an impossible range of magic. A flashback reveals Julius commissioning special weapons from a craftsman. He provides ores aligned with water, stone, lightning, fire, darkness, and more, asking for something interesting rather than ordinary. Julius possesses enormous magical power and intelligence, but winning alone does not motivate him. He absolutely hates boredoms, which is exactly why someone as stubborn and adaptable as Sarah makes such a perfect playmate. Back in the arena, Julius keeps changing the rules of the fight. Every time Sarah adapts to one spell, another element arrives from a different angle. The spectators think the tables have completely turned. Against a sage who can use multiple magical attributes, even a holy knight appears to have no realistic path to victory. Sarah refuses to accept that conclusion. If Julius wants entertainment, she intends to make him work for every second of it. Julius summons another spirit-like technique and teases that ending the match too quickly would be boring. He practically invites Sarah to keep surprising him. Sarah answers by pushing forward instead of retreating. She has not fought this far just to surrender, because the opponent has more options. Her sword moves again, cutting through the storm of magic as she searches for a line straight toward Julius. Then multiple swords appear floating in the air. What looked like visual residue from fast movement becomes something far more dangerous. They are not afterimages at all. They are genuine divine swords, each one capable of attacking independently. The divine blades multiply until 6 weapons surround the battlefield. Julius is ecstatic. There is finally no room for boredom, only pure excitement. Sarah studies the formation, already planning how to break through. Julius may have more weapons, more elements, and more magic, but Sarah has never needed an easy fight to keep moving forward. Sarah answers the multiplying divine swords with a technique of her own. Holy power gathers around her as she prepares to turn one blade into an entire storm of offense. The arena fills with flashing steel and magical light. For the first time, Julius is forced to watch carefully instead of simply playing around. Sarah explains that the sacred sword was originally meant as a purely offensive technique. She has modified it, because she already knows a straightforward attack will never be enough to defeat Julius. Her upgraded technique bursts across the arena. Sacred scattered petal dance, a sweeping barrage designed to attack from multiple angles at once. Then the announcer realizes something strange. Julius is nowhere to be found. Sarah's attack did not merely pressure him. It completely erased his visible position from the arena. Julius reappears, amused that one of his dolls has been reduced and impressed by Sarah's speed. He wants to see more. One dangerous technique has only made him more excited. The semifinal enters its next phase. Both fighters have already shown techniques that would end ordinary matches, yet neither looks ready to stop. Sarah realizes Julius is still messing with her. That irritates her more than his power, because it means the sage has yet to treat her as a genuine threat. She attacks again, forcing Julius to finally raise the scale of his magic. The battlefield begins to change under the pressure. A gigantic stone golem rises into the arena, so large it makes the fighting stage look tiny. Julius's magical power becomes impossible to dismiss. This is the true scale of a sage. Stone golems are slow, but their durability and crushing strength make them useful even in military warfare. Sarah now has to fight something closer to a siege weapon than a human opponent. The golem's massive attack bears down on her. Raw Holy Knight power meets a construct built to absorb punishment, and the collision shakes the arena. Sarah shatters the enormous golem and immediately launches a counterattack. The crowd erupts. Against all expectations, the Holy Knight is beginning to seize the upper hand. But Sarah is not fooled. She asks Julius why he is wasting time with a simple golem when he is obviously still holding back. Julius answers with a story. Has Sarah ever heard the legend of the Flame Titan? Judging by her expression, he is more than happy to explain it himself. Long ago, a titan named Surtur rampaged through human cities, burning towns and driving entire populations toward ruin. The creature became a symbol of apocalypse itself. Julius admired that legend enough to recreate it. Sarah finally understands why he bothered experimenting with multiple elemental ores and artificial constructs. He first built earth golems, then fused fire magic into the design. The result is his masterpiece, a monster he considers worthy of facing his favorite, little doll. The arena erupts in flame, a towering figure forms inside the blaze, far larger and more menacing than the stone golem before it. Heat rolls across the protective barrier as the construct takes shape. Even the spectators can feel that this is no ordinary summoned creature. Sarah braces as the fiery giant advances. Julius has finally produced the opponent he was genuinely excited to show her. The Flame Titan raises its arms, magical energy swelling across a huge area. The next attack is too large for Sarah to simply dodge. Julius's mythical construct releases a devastating wide area blast. The venue's protective magic holds, but even the announcers admit they have never seen anything like it. Sages with multiple attributes are rare enough. Julius is going further, combining two attributes simultaneously and using his imagination to create entirely new magic. That creativity may be more dangerous than his raw power, and he is not done. The Titan moves again while Sarah struggles through the aftermath, forcing her to stay on defense. Another enormous attack tears across the arena. The semifinal is no longer resembling a duel between two young artistes. It looks like a battle against a disaster. Something about the Flame Titan, Muspel, begins acting strangely. Even after taking damage, the construct continues repairing itself. Julius explains the trick. Ordinary physical attacks are meaningless against Muspel. Strike it, and the body simply changes or reforms. Sarah's normal approach cannot finish it. The Titan keeps advancing through her attacks. Every successful hit becomes wasted effort, and Julius watches to see whether Sarah can invent another answer. Sarah pushes herself harder, unleashing everything she can while flames swallow the arena. But the gap between determination and Julius's overwhelming magic is finally becoming dangerous. Muspel towers over Sarah like a living inferno. She is injured, exhausted, and still refuses to surrender. Voices call for her to stop before she gets killed. Sarah shouts back that she cannot surrender now. She still wants to win, because she wants to stand beside Lythe in the Royal Guard one day. Then a new voice cuts through Julius's game. Playtime is over, Julius-chan. Someone powerful enough to speak to the sage that casually has arrived. The story briefly recalls Sarah's path after receiving an advanced class. She deliberately chose the Central Knight Order, where many women served and where she could push herself among strong peers. Even as a rookie, Sarah defeated experienced recruits with ease. Her talent was obvious from the beginning, and she constantly chased opponents stronger than herself. But Julius is beyond anything she has faced. For the first time, sheer talent and determination may not be enough to close the gap. The Central Knights intervene and order Julius to release Sarah immediately, warning that otherwise he will be facing the entire order. Julius finally backs off, claiming he understands and will let her go. The match has stopped being entertaining, now that outside consequences are closing in. Even then, tempers nearly explode. Other knights want to attack Julius for taking things too far, while he casually invites them to come at him if they are so angry. The confrontation almost becomes a full-scale brawl. One fighter against an entire order would normally be madness, but nobody present is completely sure Julius would lose. Iris identifies Lythe to those around her, proudly explaining that he is the royal guard she personally recruited to serve directly under her. The response is immediate approval. Whatever people thought of Jobless before, Lythe's reputation is growing with every match and every crisis. Lythe rushes to Sarah and lifts her away from the battlefield. The tournament fades into the background. His priority is getting her treated. Seeing Sarah injured brings a flash of anger Lyth cannot hide. Julius may have treated the fight as entertainment, but Lyth sees the person who almost got killed. Sarah is relieved to see him, and immediately starts squirming in his arms. Lyth tells her to stop moving because she is injured, which only makes the moment more awkward for both of them. The healers take over and demand urgent medical attention. Her injuries are worse than they first appeared, and the joking atmosphere disappears quickly. Before being taken away, Sarah gives Lyth one simple request: win. If she cannot reach the final herself, she wants him to keep going for both of them. Sarah admits how frustrating the loss feels. She wanted to win and join the royal guard beside Lyth. Iris, meanwhile, says she is proud to have a bodyguard who bravely survives every impossible crisis. King Richard notices something else. The normally composed Iris is visibly unsettled by Lyth and Sarah together. The rare emotional reaction gives him an entirely new source of amusement. The king immediately decides Lyth must be the wicked young man Iris, brought home as a potential fiancé. Iris's embarrassment only encourages him further. Lyth's attention snaps back to Julius. Furious, he demands to know why the sage hurt Sarah so badly. The playful tournament mood is gone from his voice. Officials rush between them and order Lyth to stop. If he attacks Julius outside the official match, both fighters could be disqualified before the tournament even continues. The referee reminds Julius that he is competing again later and warns both men to calm down. The crowd, naturally, would love to see them fight immediately. Julius steps aside because it is Lyth's turn now. He promises they can still play later. Assuming Lyth survives the semifinal ahead of him, Lyth enters the arena still burning with anger. Losing is no longer an option, because reaching Julius is the only way he can answer what happened to Sarah. The second semifinal begins. Dark Mage Fang versus Jobless Lyth Wellesley. After everything the audience has witnessed, nobody laughs at Lyth's class this time. Fang tells Lyth to resist with all his strength. The match starts, and the Dark Mage immediately begins probing the mystery behind Jobless. A demon wolf born from dark magic attacks Lyth. Fang watches carefully, wanting to see whether Lyth can read and counter a creature that does not fight like a human. He warns Lyth not to focus only on the enemy directly in front of him. The real threat of dark magic is that the battlefield itself can become hostile. Shadows and attacks converge from multiple directions. Fang is not trying to overpower Lyth with one spell. He is trying to force him into revealing more abilities. Lyth answers with a sudden earth-based strike, smashing through one attack with a technique Fang immediately recognizes. Fang calls it out, Stone Hand, an earth attribute spell. Yet Lyth has no earth class. Another impossible piece has just fallen into place. Fang explains that a strange rumor has circulated among the knights. Lieutenant Zack, a royal guard, was exposed during an assassination attempt involving Princess Iris and Lyth. Investigators know Zack used earth attribute techniques during that confrontation, while Lyth fought back with several other abilities. Now Lyth is standing here using Zack's stone hand, making the connection difficult to ignore. Fang has investigated Lyth's past opponents too. Lyth fought the fire mage Logan in the night exam, later defeated Holy Knight Kite with divine techniques, and faced Zack during the failed assassination. Jobless clearly does not mean skillless. Fang finally says the theory out loud. Does Lyth possess an ability that steals or copies other people's skills? The arena erupts. Even the referee has never officiated a participant with an acquisition ability like that. If Fang is right, Lyth's class may be unlike anything this era understands. Some spectators refuse to believe it, while others wonder whether Jobless itself hides a special divine function. Duke Ride listens too, suddenly forced to reconsider the son he discarded. If Lyth can truly acquire other skills, then another question appears. Could the Jobless son actually be suitable to inherit the Wellesley dukedom after all? Fang still lacks the most important detail. Even if Lyth can copy skills, how exactly does he acquire them? That condition could decide the entire match. Fang attacks again, deliberately creating situations where Lyth must reveal his methods. He intends to solve the mystery by force. The announcers recognize Fang's approach. Even if Lyth can steal skills, understanding an ability is not the same as defeating a strategist who knows how to exploit it. Dark magic floods the arena. Fang surrounds Lyth with threats designed to keep him from making easy contact. Lyth cuts through one attack and closes the distance. But Fang immediately changes tactics, rather than allowing a clean exchange. A new spell bursts toward Lyth, forcing him to choose between defense and revealing another borrowed ability. Lyth chooses offense. Magical energy gathers in his hand, and Fang watches closely for the attribute. Flame Lance erupts from Lyth. The crowd gasps again. He has now displayed another element, while the demon wolves continue pressing from the dark. Fang praises the counterattack, but instead of being surprised, he looks satisfied. That one spell confirms another piece of his theory. Lyth can use skills across multiple attributes, exactly as Fang suspected. If he wanted, he could have ended earlier exchanges with divine sword techniques. Yet he deliberately chose different attacks. So why throw a punch when better skills were available? Why use fire at that exact moment? Fang realizes Lyth is still hiding something about the acquisition condition. Before he can finish the deduction, darkness opens beneath Lyth. Fang activates the technique he has been saving for the decisive trap. Lyth vanishes from the arena. Fang tells the referee the match can effectively be counted down, because escaping where he has been sent should be impossible. Fang explains that Lyth is trapped inside a void he created, a sealed space with no normal exit. From the outside, there is not even a body left to attack. Inside the darkness, Lyth finds himself isolated in an empty dimensions. No ground, no normal direction, and no obvious path back to the arena. Fang's void absorbs any attack released inside it. Physical resistance is meaningless too. Lyth's stamina will be drained until eventually his life itself runs out. From the spectator seats, the experts consider possible escapes. Even Captain Leona's experience offers little comfort. This is the kind of technique designed to end fights without direct confrontation. The first theoretical answer would be light attribute magic, the natural opposite of darkness. But if Lyth possessed a suitable light skill, he should have used it already. The second possibility is spatial magic. A spatial spell could tear open a hole in the void, but that attribute is extraordinarily rare. Even worse, advanced spatial magic requires a long activation chant. Lyth would exhaust himself before finishing it, and tournament rules prevent anyone outside from helping. Inside the void, the pressure continues draining him. Fang believes time itself is now the weapon that will defeat Jobless. The crowd starts assuming the fight is over. Some mock Lyth again. Perhaps the miracle run of the classless night finally ends here. Then something changes inside the darkness. Lyth has found another answer, one Fang never included in his neat list of escape methods. A demon wolf suddenly bursts out of the void, and Lyth comes through with it. In one move, he returns to the arena using Fang's own dark technique against him. The spectators realize what happened. Lyth copied the same attribute and escaped through the mechanism that created the trap. Camilla watches with particular interest. She playfully tells Iris that her older sister already has plenty of guards and should spare this one for Camilla. Iris's immediate refusal reveals just how attached she has become. Those familiar with Lyth are less shocked. He has always trained obsessively and adapted under pressure. Beating Fang now feels impossible, only to people who still believe strength arrives naturally. Lyth admits the void hurt badly, but escaping was worth the risk. Fang's trap gave him exactly the contact and information he needed to turn the technique around. The final exchange leaves Fang unable to continue. The dark mage who spent the entire battle dissecting Lyth's ability is defeated by the very adaptability he tried to explain. The referee declares Lyth the winner. The crowd erupts as the Jobless Royal Guard advances through another matchup that should have been impossible on paper. Officials praise the battle and say they expect great things from Lyth going forward. He is headed toward the final, but judging by the looks around the arena, someone is already preparing the next problem. From the shadows, James watches Lyth's victory with annoyance. He tells his allies to let the Jobless Knight enjoy the applause, because the Eastern Knight's real plan is still moving underneath the tournament. The final is next. But Lyth barely has time to celebrate. A familiar figure approaches, and congratulations from the crowd quickly turn into whispers. Duke Ride Wellesley, former leader of the Eastern Knights, has appeared at the venue. The spectators immediately recognize one of the Empire's most famous veteran warriors. People are confused. Everyone heard that Ride cut ties with Lyth after his class division, so why is he suddenly standing here in public, now that Lyth reached the final? Ride takes advantage of the attention and makes a stunning announcement. Lyth Wellesley, the jobless finalist, is his son. He praises Lyth's strength, as though he had supported him all along. To anyone who knows the truth, the sudden fatherly pride feels less touching, and more like a very convenient change of heart. The audience remembers why Ride's name carries so much weight. The Eastern Knights defend the Empire's border near the Dark Zone, where powerful monsters constantly threaten human territory. Ride's most famous battle came during the attack of Dark Venom, a disaster-class monster that left ordinary defenders helpless. At the time, Ride was still an Eastern Knight. He confronted Dark Venom alone and defeated the creature single-handedly, then continued fighting the monsters that emerged afterward. His performance was considered nothing short of heroic. Even veteran knights like Leona once owed their lives to him, and the scar on Ride's forehead remains proof of those battles. Those accomplishments eventually earned him the rank of Duke. Ride did not inherit his position. He carved his way into the nobility through overwhelming combat merit. Now that same legendary knight publicly praises Lyth for reaching the final. The scene looks heartwarming to strangers, but Lyth knows exactly what his father's recognition is worth. When someone mentions rumors that Lyth was banished, Ride laughs them off. Apparently, the man who once erased his son from the household now wants the public to believe it was all a misunderstanding. Ride claims his harsh treatment was training, like repeatedly striking metal with a hammer to forge the finest blade. Every rejection, he says, was meant to make Lyth stronger. He extends the metaphor to knights. Force them down a difficult path. Make them create their own road, and eventually they become strong enough to reach the royal guard. According to Ride, Lyth trained exactly as intended and gained the strength to protect Princess Iris. He is now trying to rewrite abandonment as deliberate guidance. Ride proudly declares that his son has become a knight, capable of protecting the Lawrence kingdom itself. The jobless child he once discarded is suddenly presented as a source of family pride. Then comes the real offer. Ride tells Lyth the time has finally arrived. He can return to the Wellesley household. Lyth looks at the father whose approval he once desperately wanted. Years ago, those words would have meant everything. As a child, Lyth had always looked up to Ride. His dream of becoming strong was built around the belief that one day he could stand proudly beside his father. Memories surface of Ride's overwhelming strength in training, casually handling opponents who could crush ordinary knights. Young Lyth studied every movement, trying to copy the posture, timing, and discipline of the man he thought represented the ideal warrior. Ride could stop entire groups with effortless technique. To Lyth, that strength once looked like the destination he had to reach. Even now, Lyth recognizes that trying to imitate his father's techniques taught him valuable fundamentals. At that level, a single opening means getting beaten immediately. His childhood goal had been simple: become a powerful, holy knight just like his father. Class division was supposed to confirm that path. Ride now says Lyth's skill has finally been recognized. The words sound like the praise Lyth spent years chasing. But they arrive far too late. Ride calls his son's name and waits for the answer, apparently expecting the old desire for approval to win. Lyth remembers everything that happened after being expelled. The hunger, humiliation, training, friends, and people who valued him before his father did. Lyth gives the answer his younger self never could have imagined. No, he is not going back to the Wellesley household. Ride repeats himself, but Lyth does too. Returning to the household would mean accepting the idea that he only deserved family once he became useful. The atmosphere between father and son becomes painfully tense. Even the spectators sense that the public reunion Ride imagined is falling apart in front of everyone. Lyth's refusal is tied to something larger than personal resentment. He has seen how the same class hierarchy that rejected him creates suffering across the entire kingdom. Some upper-class citizens justify exploiting the poor by calling it the law of nature. The strong protect the weak, so the weak should repay them with food, labor, and obedience. Lyth questions the premise itself. How did a situation this cruel become so normal that people stopped recognizing it as wrong? Defenders of the system claim the country was once a monster-filled wasteland. Higher-class warriors risk their lives to develop it, so they deserve greater rewards. That argument goes further. Powerful high-class people should receive preferential treatment, while commoners with lower classes exist almost like servants or slaves. The commoners answer furiously, Nobles eat food grown in their fields, wear clothes made their hands, and sit in arenas built by their labor. The country survives because everyone supports it. To Lyth, that proves the entire idea of higher and lower human value is wrong. Different abilities do not create different levels of humanity. The gods distribute classes to everyone through the oracle. If that system has meaning, then Lyth believes there must also be a reason he alone received Jobless, even if nobody understands it yet. He remembers what that label cost him. Every guild turned him away, the Wellesley household expelled him, and finding even basic work became nearly impossible. Eventually, the cold stares were worse than hunger. Lyth began internalizing the belief everyone projected onto him. A jobless person had no value. One rainy day, soaked and defeated, he returned to a guild that had already rejected him. The staff recognized him as the jobless young man who kept searching for work. Instead of throwing him out, someone offered him a drink, warmth, and an urgent request that still needed hands. For the first time, a person looked at what Lyth might be capable of, rather than his missing class. Lyth had expected another lecture about divine hierarchy. That ordinary chance to work mattered far more than the person offering it probably realized. The world had taught him that a class which recognized no power was useless, and that divine ranking was absolute. Experience slowly proved that belief incomplete, so Lyth cannot return to a built on that same judgment. Even when his own power was unknown, he chose a different path rather than live as someone else's disposable possession. King Richard finds the public rejection surprisingly gutsy. He even jokes that Lyth and Ride may be more alike than either wants time to admit, while Iris is clearly thinking something else entirely. Ride's expression hardens. If persuasion will not bring Lyth back, pride begins taking over. And the father who respects strength more than anything knows only one language left. The tension turns physical. Lyth and Ride exchange movements that resemble a duel more than a family conversation. For a moment, the crowd cannot tell what happened. The exchange is too fast. And Lyth reacts with a technique Ride recognizes immediately. Ride asks when Lyth learned that sword technique. Despite everything, he acknowledges the years of training behind it, and the remarkable results his son has achieved since leaving home. But Ride also says Lyth's way of thinking is still immature. Skill may have changed, but the father believes the son's worldview has not caught up with reality. Lyth does not argue endlessly. Someday, he intends to prove through his actions that his path can protect people without reducing their worth to a divine rank. The brief confrontation ends without reconciliation. Father and son remain separated by much more than a household name. As Lyth prepares for the final, old memories return again. People congratulating a holy knight while telling the jobless boy he had no class at all. He remembers being mocked, thrown aside, and called someone abandoned by God. Those voices have followed him into every battle since leaving home. Lyth suddenly wakes and realizes he collapsed at the venue. The painful memories were partly a dream brought on by exhaustion, and he is now resting somewhere far more embarrassing. His head is in Princess Iris's lap. Lyth immediately panics at the outrageous breach of etiquette, while part of him is considerably less eager to move away. Camilla cheerfully reveals she has been watching from nearby the entire time. Any hope Lyth had of pretending the situation never happened disappears instantly. Iris notices something strange about him beyond the embarrassment. His condition is clearly worse than he has been admitting. Lyth insists he can fight again right now, but nobody around him believes the act. His body is barely holding together after the semi-final. The medics found inflammation, multiple cuts, and several other injuries requiring treatment. Lyth did not simply get tired. He has accumulated real damage across the tournament. Iris asks if he truly intends to enter the final like this. He does not have to force himself. Withdrawing would be completely reasonable. Lyth hesitates, because the final is not only about winning anymore. It is a chance to prove the belief that carried him out of his lowest point. He tells Iris that even though he is jobless, she has always treated him fairly. She never reduced him to his class or treated him as inferior. Iris says that is because they share the same belief in fairness. A person's value should be judged by what they do, not the label given at 18. That answer settles something in Lyth. If he steps down now, only because others think Jobless has reached his limit, he would be abandoning the very principle he wants to prove. Iris understands, but she has something else to say first. an apology she has been carrying since recruiting him. She knows promoting a classless newcomer to 7th rank and making him her personal guard created resentment among citizens and knights. Lythe says there is nothing to apologize for. That position let him fulfill his duty as a knight. Iris finally relents, telling the stubbornly humble Lythe to change into proper battle gear. If he insists on fighting, then he had better show everyone something impressive. The finals are about to begin. Lythe heads toward the arena, while the royal sisters take their seats, and the entire venue settles into expectant silence. Repairs to the stage are complete. The announcer apologizes for the delay and declares that the final duel of the Lawrence Empire tournament can finally begin. First comes Julius Argyle, the Easternites' sage. His overwhelming magic carried him through every previous round, and nobody doubts he is the favorite. Julius is so relaxed that he has been lounging in the spectator seats. Whether that is confidence or pure boredom, the referee tells him to get ready. Facing him is the participant, who has dazzled the tournament with impossible adaptability. The jobless knight, who kept breaking every expectation placed on him. Lythe Wellesley enters wearing different battle gear, apparently prepared specifically for the final. The crowd immediately notices the change. Julius smiles like a child finally receiving a long-awaited toy. Lythe looks just as determined. With no more delays, the final begins. Lythe opens with a shocking technique, Dragon Breath. A blast worthy of a magical beast tears toward Julius before the sage can settle into his usual rhythm. The audience is stunned. Lythe somehow acquired Dragon Breath and immediately layers another skill into the assault, signaling that this will not be a normal one-technique duel. Julius avoids the opening barrage, but Lythe has already achieved his real goal. The breath was never meant to finish him. The explosion fills the arena and blocks Julius's vision. Lythe disappears into the smoke, turning raw destructive power into cover. Julius searches through the haze just as another attack approaches from a completely different direction. He realizes the trick too late. Dragon Breath was only a distraction. Lythe used the spectacle to close distance and set up the next skill. Lythe appears inside Julius's guard, weapon already moving. The sage finally has to defend seriously. The divine attack lands directly on Julius. The crowd roars as Lythe scores what looks like the first clean, decisive hit of the final. But Julius remains standing. Magical fragments shimmer around him, revealing that Lythe did not break through as completely as it seemed. Julius unveils Crystal Barrier, a defense formed by densely condensed ice magic. He claims it can block every attack Lythe throws at him. Lythe tests the barrier immediately, striking again from another angle. The crystal does not crack. The commentators explain that Julius creates original spells from his own ideas. Crystal Barrier is advanced magic so refined that many have tried, and failed, to break it. Lythe begins attacking from every side. Fire, blades, and physical strikes hammer the barrier in rapid succession, while Julius stays protected inside. The assault looks desperate, but Lythe's timing is too deliberate. He is not simply throwing skills at the wall and hoping one works. Julius focuses entirely on maintaining the defense. That is exactly the position Lythe wanted him to take. The scattered attacks were distractions. With the barrier sealing Julius in, Lythe traps flames around him, leaving the heat nowhere to escape and turning the perfect defense into an oven. For a moment, Lythe senses victory. Then Julius answers from inside. It is not over yet. The sage is tougher than Lythe imagined. Even the Eastern Knight's strongest defense has not revealed Julius's true ability, and Lythe realizes he needs the strategy he prepared after reaching the final. This final was never something Lythe planned to improvise. The moment he learned Julius would likely be his opponent, he began preparing a specific way to defeat him. The plan starts with Lythe's acquisition condition. Making contact lets him copy skills. Against an opponent lacking real combat experience, that means every exchange can become another weapon for Lythe. Before the final, Captain Urs organized special training. Lythe fought Royal Guard members in repeated skill showdowns, copying techniques while learning how to counter a wide range of abilities. The preparation was brutal. Every member of the squad attacked without mercy, forcing Lythe to recognize unfamiliar skills before they could overwhelm him. And Lythe still has not shown everything he gained. Julius thinks he has seen the extent of Jobless, but the real skill barrage has not even started. Lythe launches into the next phase of his plan, chaining borrowed abilities together faster than Julius can comfortably analyze them. The final is about to become a test of preparation against genius. Had identified Julius's biggest weakness before the match. To Julius, combat is a game. If he thinks he has the upper hand, boredom makes him lower his guard, and that brief arrogance may be Lyth's only chance to enter close range. So Lyth keeps provoking him, refusing to let the sage settle into a safe rhythm. Every attack is designed to make Julius show more of what he can do. Lyth openly asks why Julius is not using his double skills. Is the great sage scared? The provocation is obvious, but Julius's personality makes it painfully effective. Julius grins. Instead of taking offense, he looks delighted that Lyth is finally asking for something more exciting. He promises to show what he is really made of and tells Lyth to keep up. The magical pressure around the arena rises instantly. A new combination attack explodes across the stage. Julius begins layering elements instead of using them separately, exactly as Lyth hoped, and exactly as warned would be dangerous. Lyth dodges through the first wave, watching the timing of each component. He needs Julius to commit deeply enough that an opening appears, but Julius sees through the trick. He laughs at Lyth's shallow plan and admits he noticed the attempt to rush him. While double skills occupied his concentration, the sage answers with a violent counter. The arena is ripped apart again, proving that understanding Julius's weakness does not automatically make exploiting it possible. The venue is wrecked once more. Spectators can only stare as another section of the tournament stage collapses under the force of the final. Julius tells Lyth his prediction was wrong. This time there will be no easy escape. And the sage presses the advantage before Lyth can reset. Lyth barely survives the next exchange, relying on skills copied during his Royal Guard training to keep Julius from landing a clean finishing blow. One of those techniques comes from Selena, a Royal Guard member whose burst-style skill becomes another piece of Lyth's improvised arsenal. Selena had warned him that her wind skills are not overwhelmingly powerful by themselves. Their real value appears when combined with other elements, where good judgment can amplify the result dramatically. Lyth follows that lesson, compressing air and fire into his palm. The mixture builds into a focused bomb, meant to destroy everything in a single burst. The compressed attack detonates against Julius's position. For one breathless moment, the crowd wonders whether Lyth finally broke through. Someone asks the question everyone is thinking, did that beat him? The answer comes immediately, look carefully. Julius is still there and the sage has already prepared another response. Lyth is struck before he can fully recover. The gap between copied technique and absolute mastery becomes painfully obvious. Julius says he has sensed something familiar about Lyth for a while. Jobless can use countless skills and even doubleable skills, but Julius has one crucial advantage. He studied innumerable abilities long before becoming a sage. He dissects Lyth's combination attack with ease. Clever as it was, Lyth still lacks the deeper essence behind the technique. Julius invites him to stop holding back and show something truly worthy of the final. Selena watches nervously. Lyth is trying to modify her wind skill on the fly, but his control is still incomplete, and Julius is too strong to forgive even a slight delay. Julius combines Stone Lance with explosive magic, creating a chain reaction that detonates around Lyth from multiple angles. He mocks Lyth's lack of fear, almost fascinated that someone being crushed this badly still refuses to look scared. Another spell catches Lyth in motion. Julius is now controlling both terrain and tempo, narrowing every escape route. A mudbind trap locks Lyth down. Julius asks whether failing to notice something so simple really represents the limit of Jobless. His disappointment is almost more insulting than the attack itself. Lyth takes the full impact and collapses. The announcers fear he has finally run out of strength after absorbing too much damage throughout the tournament. Camilla is unimpressed. She had been curious about the personal guard her sister seemed so interested in, but judging only by what she sees now, Lyth looks far less remarkable than expected. Iris does not answer immediately. She knows Lyth too well to believe one collapse means the fight is finished. And sure enough, Lyth gets back up. After taking that much damage, even Julius has to wonder what is still driving him forward. Lyth clenches his fists and forces his legs to move. Skill after skill has failed, but surrender has never been one of the abilities he learned. He finally understands the terrifying scale of a true sage. Julius is stronger than every prepared countermeasure, but Lethe still has to find a way to win. The next attack comes before Lithe can think for long. He is running out of borrowed tricks, stamina, and safe options all at once. The referee warns Julius to step aside and give space, concerned by Lithe's condition. Julius only watches, waiting to see whether his opponent can continue. Lithe admits it to himself. He learned every useful Royal Guard skill he could, yet none of them can match Julius head-on. The prepared arsenal has been exhausted. Then he looks down at the one weapon he has possessed since before any copied skill, his own fists. Julius tilts his head, curious. After all that magic, what can Lithe possibly be planning with a bare-handed approach? Lethe changes his stance. Instead of trying to beat Julius at magical versatility, he decides to force the fight into the kind of close-range chaos where experience matters more. Ice lances rain toward him, but Lithe uses physical enhancement and rapid movement to deflect the barrage. The entire strategy has shifted from magical competition to direct combat. He keeps advancing through the spells, taking small openings wherever they appear. Julius's smile fades slightly as Lithe refuses to stay at the distance a sage prefers. Julius asks what he is trying to pull. Lithe gives no answer, because explaining the plan would ruin it. A sudden movement carries Lithe deeper into Julius's range. He is gambling everything on one moment of contact. The arena blurs around them as Lithe slips past another spell. One clean touch could change the entire final. This is what I'm aiming for. Lithe finally reaches the position he wanted from the beginning. The moment triggers a memory of his first acquired skill, back when he was only a porter protecting a merchant caravan from bandits. Driven purely by the desire to save others, his true ability awakened. Then Lethe hears that mysterious voice again. The same system-like announcement that accompanies skill acquisition. Something about this contact is different from usual. In the royal seats, James appears beside King Richard, and confidently claims Lithe cannot defeat his son. Richard notes how rare it is for James to show himself publicly, especially just to witness Julius's triumph. Richard asks why James is so certain. The answer reaches back to Julius's own divine oracle, and the strange nature of the class he received. What happened at Julius's oracle was so unusual that even priests questioned it. Yet, everyone knows one supposedly impossible rule: a divine oracle cannot be wrong. Julius is an elite sage, but his natural magical state did not fit ordinary expectations. He possesses immense magical power, while lacking the simple elemental structure people associate with standard mages. James explains that Julius treated those missing limits as freedom. He built an elemental cube using 6 different attribute stones, then taught himself to manipulate those powers through sheer study and imagination. The spectators remember that Lithe destroyed that elemental cube during the battle. If Julius relies on it to access multiple elements, then surely breaking it should have weakened him. James says that is not a problem at all. In fact, destroying the cube is exactly what triggers Julius's most dangerous secret. A different force begins gathering around Julius. Objects shift strangely, as if the arena itself has become heavier. The pressure multiplies. Lithe feels his body dragged by an invisible power far more oppressive than ordinary elemental magic. The elemental cube's destruction automatically activates Julius's hidden attribute. The tool was never merely a source of power. It was also a seal. That sealed magic finally awakens. The air bends around Julius as a force tied to gravity begins taking control of the battlefield. Everyone nearby senses the danger before understanding it. This is not another playful experiment. Julius's hidden power has a far darker nature. King Richard shouts for people to get away immediately. The final has crossed the line from tournament spectacle into an uncontrolled disaster. The gravity spreads beyond Lithe, dragging in people who have nothing to do with the match. Julius is no longer controlling the boundaries of his own attack. Knights rush to shield the spectators and ask whether everyone is all right. The protective arena alone may not be enough. Lithe struggles under the pressure, while Julius's magic continues intensifying. Ending the match cleanly is becoming less important than stopping the spell itself. The gravity strikes again and again, crushing terrain and pulling bodies toward its center. Every moment Julius remains conscious increases the danger. Julius reveals the cruel irony. The instant Lithe destroyed the elemental cube, his defeat was supposedly sealed. Julius even compliments him for being impressive enough to trigger this stage. The battlefield distorts around them. Lithe has finally reached Julius's true power, but surviving it may be harder than winning the entire tournament. King Richard is furious. A fierce championship fight is one thing, but if his daughters get dragged into an uncontrolled spell, he will personally end the spectacle. Observers realize Julius's dark attribute has only just awakened, and his rising anger is feeding it. The sage is losing control. The destructive field expands again. Even Julius appears surprised by how quickly the power is consuming the arena. The commanders consider whether they can guide him back without letting him fall completely into darkness. Julius already possesses strength comparable to a knightly commander. Uncontrolled, that makes him a national threat. The officials halt the duel before either contestant is killed. The final may not produce a clean winner, but the purpose of the tournament was never merely a title. It was to find and grow knights capable of protecting the country. Someone asks Julius to release Lithe and let the match end. The sage looks less concerned about victory than everyone else. Julius admits he only joined the tournament to fight strong opponents. Status, fame, and official recognition mean nothing to him, and one unfinished battle is not enough. Julius immediately starts wondering whether there is anyone even stronger in the venue. Then he remembers the obvious answer. The strongest person in the entire country is standing right in front of him, King Richard III. Julius turns his attention toward the king. Captain Ralph moves to protect Richard, only to be told to worry about protecting someone else first. The atmosphere changes again. A tournament finalist challenging the king sounds insane, yet after what Julius just unleashed, nobody can treat it as a joke. Richard steps forward without fear. The king has spent far too much of his life on real battlefields to be intimidated by one talented sage. His presence pulls the story back to an earlier era, before the Lawrence kingdom enjoyed the peace its younger knights now take for granted. In those days, knights placed their honor in flashing blades and stepped onto battlefields that seemed to have no end. The kingdom of Lawrence was being invaded by the Wizark Empire. Repeated attempts at peace failed, and diplomacy collapsed under a brutal disagreement about who deserved to rule. The invading empire did not believe treaties between equals were meaningful. Its entire political philosophy was built around strength. Wizark followed military supremacy. The weak could not be trusted with a country's destiny. Its ruler rejected negotiation and demanded that Lawrence send out a warrior worthy of deciding the land's future. Richard answered the challenge on the battlefield. His opponent was impressed enough to stop and ask the young warrior's name, Richard Lawrence. The future king announced himself, not through a crown but through the strength of his own blade. Across from him stood Hades Wizark, ruler and champion of the invading empire. Their duel would decide more than either man's pride. Richard ultimately bested Hades. For an empire that believed strength was the highest law, that defeat carried an unavoidable conclusion. Hades admitted that Richard's strength surpassed his own, and entrusted the defeated empire to him. Before the end, however, he asked one selfish favor. He begged Richard to take care of his beloved daughter. With the emperor's death and the marriage that followed, the Wizark Empire vanished from history, and its bloodline entered the Lawrence royal family. The political marriage was painful, but everyone involved accepted it as the price of stabilizing the nation. Personal feelings were forced beneath the needs of a kingdom recovering from war. Eldiana, Princess of Wizark, became Richard's first queen. Years later, Celsia was made the second queen as part of another move to strengthen the royal regime. That complicated bloodline eventually shaped Camilla's childhood. She was constantly praised as an exceptional princess and pushed to behave like a future queen. Courtiers called Camilla elegant, marvelous, and destined for the throne. The praise sounded glorious, but it also built expectations that left almost no room for her to be anything else. Then the royal court announced a major decision concerning succession. The first princess position and the right to inherit would no longer be treated as Camilla assumed. Camilla had been granted an advanced class, but not the one the court considered suitable for a future monarch. Iris's status and the council's judgment shifted the line of succession away from Camilla. To Camilla, years of harsh training suddenly felt meaningless. She demanded to know whether her Wizark blood was the real reason they refused to acknowledge her. The adults answered with the same principle Lithe had heard his entire life. In this world, nothing matters more than class. Even a princess can be discarded by that logic. Iris struggled to believe their father would turn his back on Camilla without another reason. Richard had always adored both daughters, making the decision feel impossible to understand. The sisters had once been inseparable. They endured difficult history lessons together, survived strict palace tutors, and turned stolen sweets into precious memories, because each always had the other. But hurt twists memory. Camilla begins convincing herself that Iris's kindness was a long deception, that her older sister only stayed close until gaining the higher class needed to steal the position of first princess. Camilla's resentment reaches the point where she refuses even to speak with Iris. In her mind, her sister is no longer family but a traitor who stole the one future Camilla had been raised to believe was hers. That is when a new voice approaches her wounded pride. He claims there is still a way for Camilla to regain the position of first princess, and perhaps obtain far more than that. The man presents himself as someone who truly wants to help, but the timing is too perfect. He has found a princess isolated from her family, and desperate for a reason to trust someone. He tells Camilla that she, not Iris, is the person truly worthy of the highest royal title. Every word is carefully chosen to turn insecurity into conviction. Then he reveals the larger ideology. Camilla alone carries the legitimate blood of the fallen Wizark Empire. If that nation is restored, she would not merely be first princess, she could become empress. He pledges absolute allegiance to Camilla Wizark, promising to devote every ounce of his power to placing her above the Lawrence throne. Back in the present, Commander Ralph faces King Richard III as the rebellion finally reveals itself. The hidden plan behind the tournament is no longer hidden at all. The rebels accuse Richard of creating countless grudges when he destroyed Wizark and absorbed its people into Lawrence. One of those grudges has now grown strong enough to stand directly before him. Worse, they announce that Princess Camilla is their chosen ruler. The Eastern Knights taking part in the coup claim they answer to her alone, while Iris desperately demands that her sister stop this madness. The conspirators reveal that many of them descend from, or once belonged to Wizark. Their service to Lawrence was never true loyalty. They were waiting for the chance to restore what was lost. Armed knights begin turning on their own comrades throughout the venue. The tournament crowd realizes too late that many soldiers around them entered with a completely different mission. The rebels mock the royal side for only understanding now. Every stage of the tournament brought powerful knights into one place, which also made that place the perfect target. They have waited specifically for this event, when the kingdom's strongest fighters, commanders, and royals would gather together. The coup is meant to mark the beginning of a new Wizark age. One conspirator raises a toast to the fall of the Lawrence kingdom. What began as a dueling tournament has transformed into an attempted national overthrow. Weapons come out across the venue. Loyal knights move to protect civilians, while the rebels begin seizing key positions around the arena. Julius reacts for an entirely different reason. Someone is trying to take away his plaything, and the sage has no intention of letting political plans ruin the fight he was enjoying. The conspirators order Julius to stop. They call him defective for ignoring the operation and remind him that Ralph is valuable to their plan. Julius could not care less. They can handle their conspiracy however they want. He is angry because another toy was destroyed and his entertainment was stolen. Then he tells everyone to look carefully. Something even more dangerous is entering the battlefield. A massive presence looms over the venue, silencing both rebels and loyalists. The scale of the coup is about to expand beyond human fighters. An ancient dragon descends into the chaos. Its appearance instantly recalls the pact that supposedly made Richard almost impossible to kill. The rebels explain the king's invincibility. Richard and the dragon are bound through a blessing-like contract connecting body and mind. So long as the bond functions, attacking the king normally is nearly pointless. But the conspirators have clearly prepared for that fact. Something has happened to the bond, and even Richard realizes the situation is not behaving as expected. Orders are sent to the troops stationed outside the arena. If the coup has spread beyond the tournament grounds, every reserve force must move immediately. The response is disturbing. Some units outside have abandoned their assignments or simply failed to act. The rebellion has infected more of the military than the royal family realized. A growing sense of unease spreads through the loyal commanders. They cannot tell which forces will answer the king and which are waiting to turn their weapons around. One veteran, almost absurdly calm, treats the crisis as overdue exercise. He has been too busy lately and seems more than ready to find the next rebel to punch. He calls out the soldiers who are frozen in fear, demanding they move. In a coup, hesitation can kill just as quickly as an enemy blade. Meanwhile, the confrontation between Richard and Camilla becomes painfully personal. This is no longer merely king against rebel. It is father against daughter. Loyalists warn the mutineers that refusing direct military orders is treason punishable under law. The rebels have passed the point where those threats can turn them back. Fighting erupts throughout the venue. Knights who once stood side by side in the tournament now clash as enemies. The battlefield fractures into dozens of smaller fights, forcing commanders to protect civilians, while identifying which soldiers can still be trusted. Even under the sudden assault, Richard remains remarkably unfazed. Years of war have left him far harder to shake than the rebels anticipated. The king also knows how much work Camilla put into preparing for the role she expected to inherit. That makes seeing her here hurt far more than any ordinary betrayal. Richard admits the royal court's decision was cruel and unfair. Bound by traditional statutes, he failed to defend the dignity of the daughter he cherished, and he is ashamed of that failure as a father. But Camilla's rebellion forces him to make another decision now. Richard refuses to become someone who fears change, and blindly clings to familiar traditions simply because correcting them is difficult. Camilla does not accept the apology. She accuses her father of obeying court tradition without protest and calls him pathetic for failing to act when he knew the decision was wrong. Richard turns his anger toward the true manipulator behind her. Whatever mistakes he made as a father, someone deliberately used those wounds to mislead his daughter into treason. The culprit shows no remorse. The coup has already advanced too far for moral accusations to matter. Then the ancient dragon attacks, and the venue erupts into another level of chaos. A monster powerful enough to decide wars has entered the center of a civil conflict. Richard knows his dragon's blessing makes him one of the few people who can stand against such threats. Yet he also reminds his knights that there are lives no sword can save if they abandon the people around them. The loyal troops finally receive a clear command: prepare to advance. The kingdom's defense reorganizes around protecting civilians and stopping the uprising from spreading. The knights answer with resolve. There are things they must protect, even if doing so costs their lives. That is what their title is supposed to mean. Battle lines form. For the first time since the coup began, the loyal side stops reacting and starts pushing back. Someone pleads for the fighting to stop before more people die. But the rebels have already chosen bloodshed as the path to their new empire. The loyal knights recognize the bitter reality. Retreating now would leave the entire kingdom in the rebels' hands. They have no choice but to fight through the fate forced upon them. Spatial magic suddenly activates. The battlefield shifts, as a high-level spell opens a route that ordinary troops could never create. Through that route, the restored Wizark forces begin their advance. The coup transforms into an open invasion from within Lawrence itself. Lythe reaches King Richard and checks his condition. Richard insists he is fine, though his body hurts after the earlier battle and sudden attack. Lythe demands to know exactly what is happening. Only minutes ago, he was fighting in a tournament final. Now an extinct empire appears to be marching through the capital. The rebel soldiers charge, confident in the forces they have assembled. The loyal knight orders answer from every direction. Leona Frost of the Central Knight Order joins the defense and commands the Western forces to maintain formation. The veteran commanders begin turning scattered resistance into an organized counterattack. Richard's contract and battle experience make him extraordinarily resistant to ordinary magic. Even surrounded by elite enemies, the king remains the hardest target on the field. An enemy launches a powerful strike toward him. Richard meets it head-on instead of retreating. The attack is caught and broken. The rebels begin realizing that political preparation did not somehow make the king himself weaker. The spectators finally see the true strength of Lawrence ruler. Richard is not powerful because he wears a crown. The crown survived because a warrior like this wore it. Amid the chaos, allies reunite and confirm that the people closest to Lethe are still alive. The relief lasts only seconds. There are too many other lives still in danger. Lyth is asked whether he can continue fighting. Camilla is leading forces trying to overthrow the Lawrence kingdom, and every capable knight is needed immediately. Lyth forces his injured body forward again. The final duel exhausted him, but this is the kind of crisis he became a knight to face. A wide-range offensive spell begins forming over the battlefield. Its scale is large enough to strike far beyond one opponent. The attack tears across the arena, forcing both royal guards and rebels to scatter. The protective structures left from the tournament are overwhelmed by real warfare. Even experienced fighters stare in disbelief. The amount of power being exchanged now surpasses anything shown during the official matches. At the center of the uprising stands Camilla Lawrence. The princess who once seemed destined to rule through ceremony is now surrounded by an army fighting in her name. Richard turns on James and demands to know what he intends to do with his daughter. The king recognizes that Camilla may be the symbol of the coup, but someone else built the machinery around her. James answers through action. Another wave of attacks forces Richard to focus on survival before he can reach Camilla. A legend comes to mind. Long ago, a hero invaded the Demon King's castle with the strength of countless comrades entrusted to him and unleashed a single attack, powerful enough to decide the battle. Richard has dreamed of recreating that legendary strike since childhood. After years of training, he finally perfected a version of it for himself. He gives the technique a name and gathers everything into one decisive swing. The battlefield seems to contract around the blade. The strike launches with terrifying precision, cutting through the chaos toward its target. The impact explodes across the venue. Even the ancient dragon is caught in the overwhelming force. Smoke and debris swallow the battlefield. For several moments, nobody can see what survived. The dragon crashes under the attack, and the surrounding soldiers are thrown back by the shockwave. For one hopeful second, the loyal side wonders if that single legendary blow actually ended the rebellion's greatest weapon. The onlookers are stunned by Richard's power. Even training dummies used by captains were shattered by much weaker versions. Nobody can confidently say who could withstand the perfected strike. Yet something about the result feels wrong. A hidden skill named damage transfer has changed where the attack's destruction actually went. The rebels remain standing where they should have been annihilated. The battlefield has absorbed a result that makes no sense. More soldiers emerge unharmed from the smoke. Richard's devastating attack somehow failed to produce the casualties everyone expected. The loyal commanders begin searching for the mechanism. A strike that ignores ordinary defenses should not simply disappear. At last, one of the conspirators offers an explanation. The royal side has many questions, and the answer depends on combining several abilities at once. The glowing flame dragon is protected by a steel-like body, almost impervious to common attacks. Yet Richard's single strike still drove it into the ground, which is exactly what the rebels needed. Richard's hero's strike can ignore defenses and cut through virtually anything. Camilla's damage transfer, however, can redirect an attack intended for one target to another, and James has studied her skill closely enough to build the strategy around it. A high-ranking priest adds the missing layer. Through a large area holy technique, a priest can extend blessings or healing across an entire domain instead of affecting only one person. The rebels combined that area effect with Camilla's damage transfer. Every soldier inside the zone became a possible medium, while the nearly indestructible glowing flame dragon was designated to receive redirected damage. That is why the rebel soldiers are still unharmed. Richard's strongest blow was manipulated through a network of targets, instead of simply hitting the army as intended. Loyal knights shout for civilians to run while they hold the line. Understanding the trick does not make the battlefield any safer. Observers notice how freely Lyth is beginning to manipulate his acquired power during the chaos. Every battle has pushed Jobless closer to using borrowed skills as naturally as their original owners. The enemy mocks the surprise. A previous defeat was not proof that the royal side was stronger. It happened because everything had been proceeding according to a larger plan. Richard challenges them to try the same trick again. Now that the mechanism is exposed, repeating it will not be so simple, but his hero's strike has a cost. The king may no longer be able to use the technique freely, and the rebels intend to exploit that exhaustion. Another enemy attack comes in immediately, giving Richard no time to recover from the enormous output of his previous blow. the strike causes little damage. Richard realizes the damage transfer area is no longer functioning the same way. He may not understand Camilla's true feelings, but father and daughter agree on at least one thing. They both hate the manipulator behind this coup. Camilla openly agrees with him. For one unexpected moment, the rebellious princess and the king stand emotionally on the same side against the man who used their family conflict. The enemy responds by escalating again. Personal hatred is irrelevant if the royal family can still be crushed through force. Magic shields and heavy attacks collide around Richard. Even the conspirators have to acknowledge the experience of a king who walked through real war long before this generation learned tournament combat. Richard breaks another technique and pushes forward. The rebels' carefully prepared advantages are starting to disappear one by one. Lythe and the other commanders move with him, attacking different parts of the enemy formation before another wide area combination can be built. A new threat rises from the rebel side, forcing the group to divide again. The battle remains far from decided. The opponent prepares another high-level skill, confident that raw power can still overwhelm the royal defenders. But Richard refuses to believe a technique of that level will be enough to defeat the people gathered here. The kingdom's strongest fighters have finally begun fighting together. Lythe agrees. The rebellion still has hidden cards, but so does every knight who survived the tournament, and now they are no longer fighting each other. A new attack tears into the battlefield before the royal side can reorganize. Whatever confidence they gained from fighting together is about to be tested by the rebellion's true objective. The defenders finally begin asking the right question. What was the real intention behind everything that happened today? The tournament, Camilla, the Eastern Knights. None of it was arranged independently. The mastermind mocks them for only noticing now. Even earlier victories and the Demon Wolf incident were pieces he expected. Manipulating individual soldiers is easy. The real plan has always operated on a much larger scale. He warns Lythe not to mistake tournament rules for real war. A battlefield is never kind enough to reveal every enemy, condition, or trap before the killing begins. Rebel forces tighten around the royal family. The ideology driving them finally comes fully into the open. They proclaim Camilla the rightful future ruler and promise to reclaim Wizark's honor, seize Lawrence, and rewrite the world itself, especially a society where class determines a person's value. Camilla is ordered to stay back, as the conspirators declare her fate absolute. They promise chaos will end soon, once everyone standing between her and the throne is removed. But Camilla no longer looks like the obedient symbol they expected. The more blood spills around her, the harder it becomes to pretend this is simply reclaiming what was stolen. Her opponents notice that the large area damage transfer used earlier consumed enormous magical power. They press her for the truth. If she can barely maintain it now, what is her real motive for continuing? A childhood memory interrupts the battlefield. Palace cooks once prepared prototype cakes for Iris and Camilla, setting aside portions for each sister to share. Those ordinary memories expose what the rebellion tried to erase. Even enemies and royals have families, personal wishes, and lives beyond their assigned political roles. Camilla was never simply a vessel for Wizark's restoration. She remembers calling for her father and being reassured when something went wrong. Even then, Camilla insisted she could handle everything herself, a habit she carried into adulthood. Her mother once warned her that the world is unforgiving. A princess cannot always choose the safest or happiest path. Sometimes she must move forward smiling along a road she never wanted. But the lesson came with one condition. Camilla must choose by her own will, not because someone else tells her what she is supposed to become. She belongs to both Wizark and Lawrence, and neither people must be abandoned. The memory ends with something even simpler. Family exists so you do not have to carry every burden alone. Camilla should have relied on the people who loved her, instead of suffering in isolation. Back in the present, that realization begins breaking the hold the conspirators built around her. Camilla's expression changes from resentment to resolve. An enemy attacks before she can act. Loyal knights intercept, refusing to let the princess be silenced just as she begins choosing for herself. The battlefield explodes again. Blades, magic, and royal guards converge around Camilla as the rebellion starts losing control of its own figurehead. Lythe moves through the chaos, cutting down another threat. His injuries remain severe, But the stakes leave no room for resting now. The enemy acknowledges his ability to counterattack even while surrounded. Multiple opponents are no longer enough to overwhelm Lyth. After everything he learned in the tournament, the mastermind declares that the fighting will never truly end unless he is defeated. At last, the defenders have a clear target behind the rebellion. Camilla looks around and finally sees the human cost. Every soldier has a family, and even one death can destroy an entire household. Her father is not merely the King of Lawrence. He is someone trying to prevent that catastrophe. She is reminded that Richard has been protecting people in his own imperfect way all along. Camilla also already knows the truth about Empress Eldiana, the woman whose history the rebels twisted for their cause. Eldiana accepted an unwanted marriage to protect others, proving what true resolve looks like. The conspirators likely approached Camilla because her mother refused to support their rebellion. Now Camilla must answer as the king's daughter. She is frightened and conflicted, but she chooses to move forward anyway. Personal feelings can wait. As a princess, she has responsibilities she can no longer abandon. The royal side rallies around her decision. If the traitor who engineered this war wants the throne, then they will end his rebellion here themselves. The enemy accepts the challenge and prepares another technique. Camilla responds by reaching for the skill at the center of the entire coup. Damage transfer activates. Instead of using her power as the rebels instructed, Camilla turns it towards stopping the man who manipulated her. The redirected force changes the battlefield instantly. For a brief moment, the enemy's own advantage is thrown back against him. He survives and counterattacks with terrifying speed. The battle has narrowed from armies to a clash among the strongest people still standing. He calls Camilla's attempt naive and reads through the trick immediately, answering with a near-instant evasion followed by a lethal counterattack. Holy weapons intercept the killing blow. The royal commanders have reached Camilla before the attack can finish her. The clash happens too fast for ordinary soldiers to follow. Several elite fighters combine their defenses just to prevent one clean execution. Camilla is safe. And the experts are stunned by King Richard's timing. He sealed her damage transfer the split second it activated, something only someone who understood the skill's essence could accomplish. With Camilla protected, the commanders shift into offense. Magic and physical techniques begin overlapping in rapid succession. Holy Sword, Wind Magic, and Lock-On attacks strike from different angles. The enemy is no longer dealing with one opponent but the accumulated specialties of the kingdom's commanders. A thief's secret art, Phantom Shift, adds another unpredictable angle. Fighters disappear and reappear around the target before he can settle on one defense. Then healing and revival magic enters the exchange. Any advantage gained by injuring one defender is immediately erased by another skill. The enemy becomes frustrated. No matter how many times someone is knocked down, Holy Revive and other traits pull them back into the fight. But Lyth sees something more important than the individual techniques. Every skill has a function, and every function becomes more dangerous when combined correctly with another. He remembers asking the captains a strange question during training. Does possessing more skills automatically make someone stronger? The veterans laughed. Only Lyth would seriously ask something like that. Their answer changed how he viewed Jobless. Skills are weapons, but collecting weapons is useless if none feel natural in your hands. Mastery and intelligent combinations are what turn them into genuine strength. That lesson pays off now. After closing in and making contact with the warrior using it, Lyth acquires warrior trait, Overlord Body, adding another physical foundation to his arsenal. More close-range exchanges follow. Contact with the users of Phantom Shift and Lock-On Burst adds those techniques as well. Jobless is turning every successful touch into another tactical option. When Lyth reaches the fighter using Holy Revive, another brief contact adds the recovery skill too. Offense, movement, tracking, recovery. His available options expand in every direction. The enemy finally understands the nightmare in front of him. Lyth appears to possess the skills of nearly everyone fighting here, and he can actually use them together. Camilla stares at the strange knight defending this kingdom and wonders how someone rejected by its class system became one of its greatest weapons. The mastermind condemns Richard for shielding Camilla after she committed treason. Richard gives the only answer a father needs. Once a parent chooses to protect their child, Logic is not required. The enemy calls that foolishness and promises Richard will pay for his daughter's actions. He attacks with killing intent. Sacred Judgment Flash erupts in response, a brilliant counter aimed directly through the enemy's defense. The Holy Sword technique does more than strike the outside. It destroys from within. The unexpected damage creates an opening, but everyone knows this battle is still far from finished. A darker power begins gathering around the mastermind. The air grows heavy, and the defenders recognize the same unnatural pressure associated with extreme gravity magic. Someone warns him to keep his hands off the people being protected. The threat receives only a cold escalation in return. He activates the End Gravity Domain, a pitch-black supergravity spell that does not distinguish friend from foe. Anything approaching the domain is crushed into an abyss so dense even light struggles to escape. The battlefield collapses into utter disorder. The rebellion, royal defense, and tournament arena are swallowed by the same indiscriminate catastrophe. At the center, gravitational collapse tears the surroundings apart as the black field descends. Ordinary defensive techniques cannot withstand a force rewriting the battlefield itself. Fighters are dragged downward, struggling simply to remain conscious. The difference between winning and surviving disappears. Then a counter technique erupts. Sanctum Break. A protected zone is forced open against the crushing domain. The competing powers distort space around each other. The defenders finally create a narrow region where they can move without being instantly destroyed. The enemy calls the resistance futile. Once his end begins, he claims there is no stopping it. The sanctuary strains under pressure. Every fighter inside must contribute just to keep the gravity from collapsing the safe zone. Spatial distortion caused by the gravity is pulled back and rewritten, restoring enough order for the defenders to counterattack. This is no longer simple magic. It is competing control over space itself. The phenomenon resembles Julius's own uncontrolled rampage, only now it is being used without mercy and with deliberate intent. More powerful fighters enter the chaos, judging the situation and adding their own techniques. The arena has become a battlefield where commander-level power is the minimum price of participation. When the pressure briefly clears, surviving soldiers can barely tell ally from enemy. Some shout in frustration, asking who they are, even supposed to be fighting anymore. A voice finally cuts through the confusion with the answer. The mind behind this chaos is James. The rebellion's factions were pieces in his game from the beginning. He calls for loyalty not to the old rebellion, but to the two princesses who will supposedly rule the new order. His objective has shifted from restoring Wizark to controlling whatever government emerges. One severely wounded defender admits he cannot protect everyone in his current state. The damage from the tournament and coup has finally accumulated beyond what even elite knights can ignore. Then the worst confirmation arrives. Even rebel soldiers kneel and swear allegiance to James. The entire uprising was a setup designed to place him close enough to seize control of the throne. Iris calls him a coward for manipulating everyone from behind the scenes. James smiles and says she understands him well. Exactly the kind of familiarity that makes his betrayal more disturbing. Lythe and the others attack before James can consolidate the army. They cannot allow another speech to become another command. James counters immediately, displaying abilities that do not fit any single class. Something about his power is beginning to look uncomfortably familiar. Another exchange confirms it. Every time James survives contact with a new fighter, his available options seem to increase. The battlefield realizes too late that Lythe may not be the only person here capable of turning other people's abilities into his own weapons. James's condition begins deteriorating as absorbed powers pile up, drain, burst boost, blood berserk frenzy, and more stack inside him until control starts slipping. The defenders shout for everyone to stay on guard. James is becoming more unstable and more powerful at the same time, so they have to stop him before the abilities consume what remains of his mind. Another exchange triggers new acquisitions, Heavy Roar and Heaven-Breaking Fist. Each opponent who engages him risks giving the enemy another weapon. James unleashes the stolen power immediately, proving he does not need years of training before using every new technique at a dangerous level. Someone warns him that if he lets this power consume him, he will no longer be himself. James barely seems interested in preserving the person he used to be. Even allies plead with him, not to continue with that expression and that level of rampage. Whatever ambition started this coup is being swallowed by the power it unleashed. In the chaos, Lyth reaches Sarah and catches her injured body. The sight of her hurt again hits him harder than any magical attack. For a moment, rage threatens to override judgment. Lyth wants to charge straight through everything separating him from the source of this disaster. He moves, forcing his battered body back into battle. The fight has become personal again, but this time he cannot afford to lose control the way James has. Enemies intercept from multiple directions. Lyth tears through the first line while the remaining commanders scramble to prevent James from stealing more useful abilities. The clash accelerates. Every second James remains active means another chance for the battlefield itself to make him stronger. More acquisition announcements appear. High-speed chanting, lightning magic, and iron wall. The list of stolen skills keeps expanding beyond any normal fighter's capacity. The defenders finally identify the terrifying rule. If James lands the right contact, a person's skill can be stolen. The more he fights, the stronger he becomes, so approaching him carelessly only feeds the enemy. Despite the warning, someone has to close the distance. The group begins planning around stopping his movement first, rather than trying to overpower him directly. First, we stop it. What comes after can wait. Survival requires containing the acquisition spiral before worrying about a perfect victory. But even a powerful single strike fails to settle the fight. James's flesh is not merely regenerating. It is transforming under the accumulated effects of stolen abilities. Then another announcement appears. Gigantification acquired. His body begins changing again, giving the defenders an even larger physical problem to contain. The onlookers recognize the new power as a Western commander's skill. James stole it moments ago, and is already using it as though it belonged to him. The sight recalls an ancient legend. A hero once confronted the Demon King after being entrusted with the strength of his comrades. For one miraculous battle, many people's power became one person's weapon. But that legendary power was never meant to last. It existed only for the single moment needed to defeat the Demon King. James is doing something far more unnatural. He keeps taking, absorbing, and adding everything without stopping, and that is where this chapter leaves the battle.